Yeah. So for our very first episode, we decided to pick a series that's nice and easy to talk about, which, as I'm sure you guessed by now, is Halo. Wow, Elias,
Easy
really?
is a relative term.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. There is quite a lot to talk about. I'm gonna turn you up just a little bit, Homick. Okay. So as some of you already know, Ben here used to speedrun Halo 1. So that's the only reason he's here.
A very long time ago.
I didn't know that. When are we gonna race?
Oh god. I'm sure it would go better than ours.
I would like to add as well, I did not speedrun the whole game. I only speedrun 2 specific missions, and that was the mission Halo and the Maw.
I mean the Maw though, pretty good. Pretty good. So for those of you that don't know him, can I get a nice hello to everyone's favorite Scottish gremlin, Ben McCleary? Yeah, he waved.
Greetings.
Hello.
Oh my. So thanks for being here, I guess. Now, some of you may know this, but it is actually illegal to have a long, in-depth conversation about Halo without including my very good friend, HomykSmash. Welcome to this terrible attempt at a podcast. How are you this evening?
I think it's going pretty well so far, dude. I've got food in my tummy, and I'm ready to talk shit about one of my favorite game series.
Oh, I cannot wait. So, I say we just dive right into it, and I'm going to start with you, Ben. Favorite Halo game? Okay. Don't specify any details why, just favorite Halo game.
Oh, you bastard. Halo 1.
Fair. What about you, Homick?
Halo 1.
And Halo 1 for me as well. So we're
podcast
structural
over.
purists.
That's it.
Good night, everybody.
It's over. Bye. Okay, so I wrote up a few questions that I was just kind of curious about that I figured I could bounce off. And the first one I thought was kind of an odd question, but I thought it was a good way to get our brains moving. How good of a job does the first game do at making you feel like a badass compared to Halo 2 and Halo 3?
Oh my god, dude. Well, probably the first place to begin would be the Marines.
Okay.
Well, just the interactions you have with NPCs in the game. Like, Marines are constantly like cheering, telling you how much of a badass you are. Grunts are constantly screaming and running away from you in terror.
He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. I don't want to die. It's fantastic. From your abilities as the character, as a chief in the game, also being able to frickin' flip vehicles by yourself when no other character has that ability, to being able to use pretty much any weapon that you want in the game, driving any vehicle that you want to drive, just being strong enough to punch a fucking 8-foot tall alien in the face. When it has an energy shield, just to have the balls to run up and just deck some dude in the face. To fighting off hordes of zombies.
Yeah, the Flood, yeah.
Like, I think narratively as well, it does a really good job, literally from the first mission. Like, the whole premise of the beginning of the first mission is, things have gotten bad, it's time to bring out the super weapon. Oh wait, you are the super weapon. Like, the whole premise of the opening mission is, hey, we're in a really bad spot and we need to be saved because we're being accosted by aliens. Wake up, Master Chief. We need him to kill everything for us.
Thaw the hushed casket.
Oh, it was like the coolest code name, right? Like the hushed casket. It's so good. And, you know, Homick, you mentioned about the Flood. I always found it interesting that, you know, Master Chief, you know, he looks at that dude's helmet, like the recording from the helmet right before you encounter the Flood for the very first time.
Oh, yeah.
And
that whole sequence is amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. It sets such an atmosphere. It's fantastic. But Chief sees these popcorn shrimp zombie things coming out of the walls, and it doesn't even faze him. He has no idea really what this is, how dangerous it is, how deadly it could be, the consequences of it charging him in the face. He doesn't give a shit. He just goes for it. What a badass. But how do you think that works in Halo 2 and 3?
The Flood and Halo 2 are annoying.
Fair.
Now, So I'm going to take the anniversary out of the equation because the anniversary does some things to the flood reveal in Halo 2 that I did not like. But in Halo 2, when the flood came back, they did a good job of scaling them up in a way as an enemy. But the thing is you can't really bring that back. They brought back the flood in how terrifying they could be in Halo 3. They brought it back. In Halo 2, they were just made more annoying than anything, to be honest.
So you feel like the flood is the weakest in Halo 2?
Yes, I will say the flood is the weakest in Halo 2.
I totally agree with that.
Now the reveal, the grave mind is the fucking grave mind. Like,
right,
you
of
have
course.
the grave mind reveal, and then that's a really important part of the story. However, as an enemy in the game, the flood is weakest in Halo 2.
Now, I've always found something about Gravemind interesting. It gives intelligence to what seemed like a Horde-esque enemy previously. And I think that's cool.
It is their intelligence. Like,
but you don't get to see that in Halo 1, you know?
Nope, not in Halo. Well, that's because in Halo 1, it's not... Oh, God, now we're getting into lore.
We're starting early!
In Halo 1, the Gravemind wasn't fully formed. They made the fleet form, the brain form, which is the proto-Gravemind. It's the start of the... Okay, for those of you who have no idea what the fuck we're talking about, let's backtrack a bit. For those of you who have no idea, the Flood in Halo is undead space zombies. That are a parasitic entity that can be transmitted physically or eventually through spores in the air. They're a fungal infection and a parasite. It's very interesting. They were a different alien race long fucking time ago. And then through various sci-fi betrayals and bullshit, they turned into space zombies. God, I'm afraid to get into the lore because I can go back. but yeah, so Flood, space zombies, and they've had in the original 3 games is when they were most prominent, and so we're talking about Halo 1, 2, and 3, and the differences between them and the impact they had on the player, I guess. In that time. So Halo 1, they had the most impact because it's the first time you've fucking seen them. And they do such a good job of amping up their threat. Like, they start off with the fucking popcorn infection forms. And then all of a sudden, boom, bang, boom, slap through a door come the fucking combat forms, which are then the infection forms take over a host. They corrupt its dead body, and they turn it into a Flood combat form, which is just a zombie with tentacles.
Right.
Japan be praised. And then, after that, during that same mission, you find out they can fucking use weapons. They're intelligent enough to use weapons. Or they have some semblance of intelligence to use weaponry. And then, in the next mission, you find out there's more forms that you find out where the little squid forms come from, the little infection forms. And it just, they keep amping it up, how scary these things are. I would say in Halo 2, the fact that they couldn't in Halo 1. No, they could not. Pilot vehicles in Halo 2.
Yeah.
That was definitely piloting vehicles and taking over dead bodies, or dead Flood bodies. They couldn't take over actual dead bodies until Halo 3, which was a fucking amazing mechanic and was scary as shit.
Yeah.
Because anything without a shield, save for, jackals, grunts, and that, like, any elites, any brutes, any humans, if their defenses were down in an infection form, if an infection form swarmed them, they transformed into zombies right in front of you, and it was fucking badass to see, but also terrifying.
Yeah, and it's funny with the cutscene in Halo 3, where the Arbiter finally gets his sweet vengeance. You start to see the tentacles come out of what, Truth? Was it Truth?
Yes.
So come out of Truth's face, and so you get to see him slowly losing himself to the infection. And that scene's just amazing. We'll get there because that's Halo 3.
We'll get there.
So okay, let's backtrack a bit. So we were talking about I got on a fucking tangent. I apologize.
No, it's good. It's good.
We were talking about just what was the best Flood version,
Mm-hmm.
and in my opinion, they evolved it over time, but the best experience of the Flood as an enemy in Halo was definitely Halo 1.
Okay.
For damn sure, because in Halo 2 it was just kind of like a hey, we're here. This is our leader. And then in Halo 3, then they became more of a threat, but the initial punch of them was strongest in the first game. Because I mean, that's always how it's gonna be when you first reveal an enemy like that in any series. Same with Dead Space with the Necromorphs. When you first meet the Necromorphs in Dead Space 1,
God, yes.
it's horrifying. And it's
tear their limbs off, written in blood on the walls before you encounter them. You've got no idea what that means yet.
There's nothing like the first playthrough of a game, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so like I wish I could like erase my memory
Mm-hmm.
every November and replay Halo 1 for the first time over and over.
It'd be amazing. You know, you were talking about the Flood and how good they were and how bad they were in different games. One thing that I think shouldn't be ignored is the music that plays when the Flood comes after you. It's so tense and atmospheric. It is peril. That is exactly what it is.
It's really funny. It's really funny you say that. I actually saw a tweet about this like literally the other day, and it's like a clip of some dude like sitting at his desk and then suddenly looking very terrified, and somebody's edited it to have the Flood music in the background.
I saw one of fucking SpongeBob.
Oh no!
They were on the I forget what episode it was. They were on a boat and they were trying to save Mr. Krabs' first dollar or something like that.
I remember when they opened up the doors.
Boy?
Yeah,
and it's everybody scared me minor. Every sailor knows that means death, and it's just peril. It's like, so good.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Oh yeah, because when they open up the doors and you see like the black and white orchestra just going crazy. Yeah.
There you are, you bilge rats.
That was really good. I think we can all agree that Halo 1 does initially a fantastic job at making you feel like a badass. I would say that 3 does a good job as well, but I feel like 2 is the weakest in that regard.
Yes. I feel a lot because a lot of you're a little bit more neutered for like for those who watch my stream, everyone knows the shotgun is like my favorite weapon.
Oh yeah.
Halo.
The Halo 1 shotgun is
and unfortunately they neutered the hell out of the shotgun in Halo 2. Especially like later on when you're fighting like only brutes and stuff like that, and they're just tickled by the shotgun. It's so depressing. But just other than like certain weapons, well, I don't know actually. I don't know because they had some really awesome set pieces in Halo 2.
I feel like the big thing is that there's, for me anyway, the reason that it feels so different between Halo 1 and Halo 2 is the addition of playing as the Arbiter. You still feel strong, but it's in a different way, and because you're a lot more involved with another side of the story, which is again something we can get into later. But I think Halo 2 is the perfect example of how you take 2 playable characters and put them into one narrative, and Halo 5 is the perfect example of how you shouldn't do it. And I think it's interesting drawing those comparisons.
Now, that's interesting. You bring up the Arbiter. Now, question. For those of us who played Halo 2 when it first released, did you like or hate the Arbiter when he first came about in Halo 2?
So it's actually really interesting that you say that, because I have an interesting story about the Arbiter. I personally love the Arbiter because the first time I played Halo 2, it wasn't necessarily me that was playing it. My dad got Halo 2, and he hated the Arbiter levels, so he got me to play them for him. So I always loved the Arbiter levels because it meant I got to play.
I think to describe my experience with the Arbiter, I have to tell a tiny little story first. So when I was young, about 10 years old, I had a little vacation, I guess you could say, for reasons for another time. But I was up at a cousin's house, right? And they were teenagers and I was 10. So what did they do? They had fun with me. So they grabbed me and they threw me into a pool, right? But when they threw me into the pool, my toe got stuck under like the lip of the pool and just like that. Just, oh, right? I screamed bloody murder because it hurt. And they didn't want to get in trouble because, you know, the parents would have ripped into them hard for doing that to me, right? So instead, they're like, hey, why don't you just play some of these cool new video games? And that was Halo. And that was actually the first time I ever played Halo, and it was Halo 1. And the flood terrified me. I was like 10. So, of course, absolutely terrified by the flood. But it was that made me want to get an Xbox 360 when Halo 3 got announced. And so I got the 360, but I didn't have Halo 3 because it wasn't out yet. And that's when I learned that the 360s were backwards compatible. So I ended up playing Halo 1 and 2 at the same time. So I played 1 and then I immediately played 2. But this was after 2 came out, though not super long after. And as a character, I love the Arbiter. And I do have a bit of a bias there because I love Keith David, because Keith David is amazing. Like, oh.
Silverthroat on Instagram. Go follow him.
Oh, he's so good. I love him. He's in so many things. Like, he's in Mass Effect. He's in Final Fantasy. I mean, he's in everything. And I love him for it.
He plays himself in Central 4.
Yeah, he does. So funny. It's so good. But I've always loved the Arbiter as a character and like the concept behind him and everything. But I hate his levels. I hate playing as the Arbiter. I like him as a character. I hate him as a playable character because his levels to me are really boring and samey.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as you, Jacob. When it was revealed that you played as the Arbiter, that was one of the coolest reveals for me as growing up as a 14-year-old. Like, that was one of the coolest fucking reveal. Being like, holy shit! I was like, why are we spending so much time on this guy? It didn't click at me at first. And then as soon as like they're like, become the Arbiter, I was just like, we're playing as an elite? Because I had no fucking idea. I just jumped right into the story. And sure as shit, like we started playing it, I was ecstatic. The Arbiter's levels are the easiest to speedrun.
That's fair. That is absolutely fair.
If that says anything about it, they're the easiest to speedrun because you got that cloak ability. I had a couple of levels that I loved the most. I love the first mission as Arbiter, that introduction. You start off with a fucking energy sword. Like you only ever got an energy sword if you managed to kill that Ultra Elite in the Scarab at the exact right time. And then you had it to kill 2 more dudes, and that was the end of the mission. And then to start the next mission with that fucking weapon was so awesome. I loved Uprising. I liked the last 2 missions of the Arbiter. I liked Uprising and I liked the Great Journey. So I like the first mission and then the last 2 missions of the Arbiter.
Everything in between.
Funny,
those,
I think everything in between was fucking Flood. And as I said, I did not like the Flood in Halo 2.
That
I think
is
another
fair.
thing with the Arbiter for me, I think another reason that I love the Arbiter so much was, and the energy sword is a good note there. I feel like playing as an elite, and obviously you couldn't use the energy sword in Halo 1.
Right.
Like you could see it and you could get absolutely murdered by it.
Oh yeah.
And to be able to not only use the energy sword but be playing as an elite with an energy sword is like, dude, these things used to stab my ass in the first game, and that's me now.
Right?
I stab the ass.
Yeah, right. And I feel like the same thing with the fuel rod cannons. Anytime in Halo 1 you'd kill one of the grunts that had one, they would drop it and then it would explode. But now you can shoot it, and it's so satisfying. Although I do still prefer the human rocket launcher.
I mean, and the Arbiter also has my favorite line in the entire series, which is also from Halo 2, which is, if they came to hear me beg, they will be sorely disappointed.
Well, he's such a great character.
Pretty badass.
That line, I remember hearing that line and thinking, what a fucking badass. And then to have that then come back as an achievement in Halo Reach, and spending ages trying to get said achievement in Halo Reach for the first time. It's just,
In general, the Arbiter was a really well-made character. He was likable from the beginning. just from like how honorable he was as like a soldier and everything, to the fact where it all culminating with him and Chief teaming up in Halo 3. Probably one of the biggest bromances of all time. Like there are internet, like RB and Chief, there are internet series made
Oh, yeah.
about their bromance in the
Oh, yeah.
series.
Okay.
And that bromance even consisted even into the later games, which is really awesome. And
Okay, but
which I hope
hot
we see
take.
in Halo Infinite.
Hot
but-
take. I think that the Arbiter and Chief's romance is overshadowed by one other bromance, and that is the Arbiter and Johnson.
Yes.
I think the Arbiter and Johnson bromance is the real bromance here.
It's a
That's where it
toss up. It's a toss up because Johnson's just the bro. He was the
Yeah.
bro, the fucking bro. From you, like people loved him so much in Halo 1, they brought him back. They made him survive the shit in Halo 1.
Yeah.
So you can see him again. Well,
Hold me.
this is it, baby. Hold me. And it was like from Johnson's run from Halo 1 to Halo 3, he was one of the best characters I've ever experienced in a game. I
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where again, I was watching this video recently, and in that video they bring up the importance of like the impact that characters have on story. And although you like play as Chief, and although as you play as Arbiter, and there's these big players, when you take Johnson and you look at the story as a whole, the question that was asked in those interviews was, how would the story change if you removed X character? And the question was, how
Ooh.
would the story change if you removed Sergeant Johnson? And you look at all three of the original games, and you realize that literally nothing would have succeeded without Johnson. It's Johnson's. Well, it was Johnson that forged the basic alliance with the Arbiter. If it wasn't for Johnson, the Arbiter, and that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Johnson, none. Oh.
it's an interesting point. Like that's always an interesting point, I feel like. Because when I always interpret that question as what would happen if this character wasn't in there, I immediately think of, what if that character was not that character? What if that character existed, but it wasn't necessarily that character? Like, could that character have been someone else? Which, like, you could not have put. I don't know. It's always hard to say because, like, with Chief, it's easy because for the most part in the first 3 games, he is a husk. For the player to
Right.
inhabit. So it doesn't matter what husk you put in that position, as long as there's a super soldier that can do the stuff Chief does. Like in the first 3 games, it doesn't fucking matter. Other than him having a relationship to Cortana.
Right.
That's the only thing that matters. You could not say the same about Johnson.
Yeah.
You could not. Like you couldn't have a Captain Keyes like the speeches in the beginning. Like I like Keyes as a character,
Yeah.
but you couldn't have the same speeches in the beginning of Halo 1 if it was like Captain Keyes giving the speech.
Yeah.
It'd be like, "This is it, Marines. Make me proud." Whereas Johnson's like, "I want you to go in there and I want you to tear their innards and shove them down their throats." It's like, it's so good.
I think that also leads to making you feel like a badass because this guy's on your side. Look at all this. This dude's ready to go, and he never stops going either until, you know.
Nope.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that I love so much about Johnson is that he's not some souped up Spartan. He's a dude, a badass dude who's just like, I fucking hate Covenant, man.
Well,
But even then, he's the one, as Homing mentioned, that forged the alliance, you know? Or Ben,
Well,
I can't
Ben
remember who
mentioned
said that.
it was
I
bad.
Just how much I'm paying
it-
attention.
It was yeah, like Fox knows what I'm talking about. I don't want to get into it. Technically, Fox is augmented human. Oh, not Fox. Jesus.
I knew it!
Fox
God,
now,
Fox.
Sergeant Johnson.
Yeah, I honestly
Johnson
don't
is
remember.
technically a Spartan 1,
So
actually.
I remember there being a book. I want to say it was called Contact Harvest
Yes.
that involved Johnson, and I know I owned it at one point, but I don't think
Yeah,
I
he was
ever
the main
actually got around to
character of that
reading it. I know I read The Fall of Reach, and it was one of my favorite books when I was in high school. It was a fantastic book. But yeah.
So this is the interesting thing for me about the Halo series, and I think it'll be interesting to have both mine and Homyk's perspective on it. Is I have not, when it comes to side content, I haven't read the books. I haven't got a lot of the extended universe lore, apart from brief summaries of games that like Halo Wars and Halo Wars 2, and kind of brief summaries of stories from those games. And I think it's interesting that, and again, we keep alluding to this, that will come later about Halo 5. I think that it's something that is interesting that the first 3 games does. In fact, I would even argue that all of the first 4 games and Reach do, is you can still enjoy them in isolation. Like, you don't need to know the extended universe stuff to enjoy them. But the experience is enhanced by knowing the information from those sources. They are not a requirement.
Right.
And on that, we 200% agree. I read not all the books, but I've read a good chunk of the books. I've read the first 3 that came out. I've read some of Glasslands, and I've read Contact Harvest. I enjoy Blue Team. I enjoy the extended universe, and the first 3 games did a good job of having that content there. But as you said, you could play the games and you could understand what the fuck was happening.
Not so with Halo 4 and 5.
Yeah, not so indeed.
I had no fucking idea who the Didact was.
Yep.
I was like, okay, cool, a new villain. He's a Forerunner. That's interesting. But apparently there's a fuck ton of backstory. In the Primordium books, or whatever the fuck they're called, in that trilogy. There's a Forerunner trilogy where they detail the Forerunners' rise to power, their betrayal of the Precursors. The Precursors then turned into the Flood after a couple of millennia, and then the Forerunner ancient human war that ended with the Flood killing almost everybody and the Forerunner killing everybody in the galaxy to stop the Flood. And you learn about the Didact in those books.
Yeah, that's where his entire fucking backstory is, and they give you none of it in the game.
See,
none of it.
I don't
they're just like, this guy hates humans, and you're like, why? Because he's Forerunner. I'm like, but
why do Forerunner hate humans? How do Forerunner even know who humans are? And there's so many questions that go unanswered in Halo 4, and then at the end he dies, and you're like, huh?
Dies.
Yeah. Put that in air quote. Yeah, dies, and you're like,
because he actually dies in a fucking comic book.
Yep.
See,
oh look, more side content.
See, here's the thing. I don't mind a series having side content. I think that that's great. I think that having those extended things, books, comic books, animes, TV shows, movies, whatever, I think that's all great. But I think that games should not require you to have experienced those other things to understand what's going on. I'm glad that they're there for people that want to consume more content, but for the games themselves, the thing that started it all, they should be able to operate independently. Now, throwing little references here and there, yeah, that's fine. That's like a little reward for having done the extra content, consumed that content. But making the entire plot just, that's so bad to me, and that's why I didn't like Final Fantasy 15. That's a conversation for another day.
That's the thing that I mostly agree on. I think another thing that I like is, and it takes in my opinion, a skilled writer to do so, is to be able to write a game where that side content is not only not necessarily required, but it can deeply enrich a story if you have read it, while also not being required, in the sense that if you've read it, you might be able to figure things out in advance. And I think that the note of good side content, the big red glowing light that shows that the side content is good and that the core game is good, is that when neither need each other, but together as a whole, they are even stronger than their individual parts.
I have an interesting thought that I've never really thought of before. Is there any other game that has so much side content as Halo? in terms of
Oh.
actual novels, short films,
'Cause
graphic
there's
novels.
a fuck ton
Ooh.
of Halo side stuff.
Yeah, that's actually a really good
Other-
question.
Because that's part of the fucking problem.
Yeah, that is part of the issue. I'd like there was this image that somebody put up. I'm trying and it was like it was an image of what you need to have read before you play Halo 5. And it
Mm.
was like this image, and it's like Halo 5 in the middle, and it's got all the side content you should have consumed, and then highlighted under it what important information you gain by having consumed that content. And you look at it, and it's like all of these things are incredibly important to this story,
Yeah.
and I didn't know any of them.
Yep.
Mm.
I never read any of the Diablo books. Riceball brought that up.
I didn't even know Diablo
Oh,
had
yeah.
books.
I
I've
was
never read
aware. I just didn't know if they had a lot.
Mm.
As much as Halo, I have no idea.
Mm.
Halo has a shit ton of fucking external content
Yeah.
to the point where they're making a fucking TV show also.
Yeah.
And
Like-
there was that whole fuck, what was it called in the lead up to Halo 4? They had like the live action series, or was
Oh
it live
yeah,
action?
like the episodic
Forward
thing?
Unto Dawn.
Yes,
Forward Unto Dawn.
I
Um,
have that DVD actually.
I remember,
and no one was
because I remember it
surprised.
so vividly because there was that Halo channel, the app on the Xbox, that like you could only
Mm.
like watch them as they were released on that, but the app functionally wasn't great,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and it doesn't even work anymore. That app doesn't even work anymore. Like if you, I think it was Halo Waypoint, I think it was called.
Hmm. Yeah. Waypoint.
I'm sure it's dead at this point. I don't even know if you can open the app anymore.
Well, your game will certainly try if you're opening a terminal.
yeah, that's true.
I fucking hate that. I goddamn hate that shit. It used to be just a part of the game, but now it's like, oh hey, Halo Waypoint, fuck! I'll accidentally click a terminal while I'm doing Halo of Ember, and it'll fucking be like, did you want to download Halo fucking Waypoint for Steam? You!
Oh.
So to kind of pull us back to Halo 1 a little bit, one of the questions I wrote here was, so obviously Halo 1 had to set the stage for the rest of the franchise. How well do you think it did that?
Amazingly.
Beautifully.
Like it had action, it had horror.
Mm.
It gave the people exactly what they as far as story, it told them all they needed to know, and it gave them exactly what it should have given them. It was a very simple story in terms of like, I enjoy simple stories, and Halo 1 is such a nice, straightforward. You are trying to stop the galaxy from being destroyed.
Yeah.
And
I think that I love a lot about it as well is and I think it's a pitfall that a lot of not just modern Halo games, but modern games in general fall into is Halo lets the action speak for itself by playing the action. The cutscenes that you watch, you're not watching some
show don't tell. A lot of show don't tell.
Yeah.
It's a lot of show don't tell, and a lot of the cutscenes that you watch, they're not like big flashy combat war sequences. They're the more intimate, the actual the combat is what you play, and the story you get in reward for that combat. And I think that's something that Halo 1 does fantastically in the first game. And the way that it rounds out the story and keeps it contained, you can play Halo 1, and if you played Halo 1 in no other Halo game, you didn't even play Halo 2 or 3, you would still have a fulfilling full experience, and you would still have a full story end to end. You would have questions if you looked into it, but that was the beauty of it. Was if you didn't want to, or I'm sure there are people out there somewhere who missed out entirely and have not played any other Halo game, but they still have a full story experience.
Yeah. So a follow-up question to that, Ben, is do you think when they created Halo 1 that they intended it to be a franchise, or they just kind of left it a little open in case maybe the game did good, maybe they could come up with a sequel?
I think they were definitely planning a franchise. The last line of the game.
Yeah, well, some do the whole cliffhanger thing just in case it does well, you know.
Let me actually I'm gonna look something up because I'm curious.
Okay. Go for it.
When did
So-
the
Yeah, that's it is an interesting question though. I feel like whether or not the like actual plan was for it to be a franchise, I feel like the team behind the game wanted it to be a franchise. That's what it would feel like to me anyway.
Yeah, they put
Um,
enough extra effort into everything that happened
Yeah.
to
So-
make it a franchise. Yeah.
Okay, I looked this up. So, because I remember this when I first played Halo 1. I remember in the library after I played Halo 1, I was looking around our library
Mhm.
in school, and I saw the Fall of Reach book,
Oof.
and I took it home and I read it, and I looked at when that came out. That came out before Halo 1 released. Or
Really?
around, it
Really?
came out in October 2001.
I did not know
Wow.
that.
I believe Halo 1 came out in November.
I did not realize
Wow.
that the Fall of Reach was that old.
I didn't either. I thought it
Yep.
came after like 2 or something.
That's really
Yes,
interesting.
Halo 1 was released on November 15th, 2001. So the book came out before the game.
Huh.
Wow.
So they've been doing this shit since the game's release.
and yet though, and yet you didn't need to read the book for
You didn't?
any
Yeah.
reason at all. You could still enjoy the game 100%. God, they'd only done that with Halos 4 and 5.
Yep. And that's but that just goes to show. In order to bring it back to the original, I do think they planned it to be a franchise from the get-go,
Yeah.
or at least an ongoing sci-fi story. If the game wasn't successful, I guarantee you they're going to continue with the novels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the novels. I
Yeah.
love them. They're always such fun reads.
Yeah.
Like I always enjoy the hell out of them. I love the characters. I love all the Spartan 2s. I was really happy to see them very briefly in Halo 5.
So here's another thing. I mean, I know this is a little bit of a side tangent, but it's something that I'm really curious about because Homic, being someone who has consumed that side content and is a lot more intimately familiar and a lot more fond of the characters who appeared in Halo 5, for lack of a better term, how bad was it? Because you know those characters, and when you
How bad
play
was it
Halo 5
implemented?
yeah, because
It was
those
fucking
characters
terrible.
yeah, because I'm realizing that as someone who knew nothing about those characters, I thought it was terrible. The knife must have been twisted twice as much for somebody who already enjoyed those characters.
Oh, it hurt. It hurt, dude. Well,
Mhm.
okay, I don't want to go into this too much. 'Cause God knows I've gone off about this conspiracy theory of mine so many fucking times before. I think the
I'm
introduction of Blue Team was supposed to be introduced in their own game.
Really?
That would have
Yeah,
been better.
I'm a firm believer that Halo Guardians was supposed to be its own game, and that was supposed to feature Locke and his
Yeah.
team chasing down Chief. And then when Halo 5 came out, that was supposed to feature Chief and Blue Team.
Oh.
That would have been infinitely
And-
better.
But the reason why time constraints, they hadn't released a single new Halo game for the Xbox One. It wasn't doing well at all in its lifespan. It was fucking terrible. The Xbox One was abysmal.
Yeah.
It was a depressing time as a Halo fan.
Yep.
Because all we had for a while was Master Chief. All we had was Master Chief Collection. But because like that goes into a whole can of worms with like the game industry in general. But yeah, so back to your question, it was terrible, and I wish they had their own game, like a
Yeah.
Fall of Reach spinoff.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, that'd be
they keep-
cool.
But and you know another thing that pisses me off, and they did it again with Infinite. They had a book in between 5 and Infinite showing where Chief got his new fucking armor from. And who's he adventuring with? Fucking Blue Team. Like, and it's just like,
So that's an interesting thing as well because
Homic's
there
gonna
was-
explode.
there was a big part of this. So in preparation for this podcast, I was like, I realized there's a lot of corners of the Halo universe, and not even just the extended universe in terms of books and stuff, but
Mhm.
games. I've never played the Halo Wars games, so I didn't know much
played
about
one.
the story.
Mm.
So I watched a quick recap of story and stuff, and got a lot of story from Halo Wars 1 and 2, and it answers a lot of questions that I had about the Halo Infinite trailer, and it seems like I feel like I've almost ruined whatever Magic Infinite would have, because it seems like I already know everything that I would need to know about Halo Infinite from those other games.
That is the interesting thing, because a bunch of Halo nerds are like, "Oh, the Banished are in Halo Infinite," and I'm like, I didn't play Halo Wars 2.
Yeah,
I'm aware of being a Halo fan. I'm aware of who the Banished are.
yeah,
I've seen some cutscene footage of them fighting the Flood, and they're badass brutes. Is all
yeah,
you really need to know.
yeah,
They're badass brutes that separated from the original Covenant.
yeah. During the
Um,
first Covenant Human War.
yeah, yeah, and it's I'm interested to see how it goes. I think the main antagonist they got is very charismatic, and I'm really eager
Mm.
to see him in the game because he seems like a good foil to Chief's like stoicism.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just a warrior that's like all up in your face. I think, but anyway, side tangent. Um,
Yeah.
again, I'm a little worried about Halo Infinite story because they're throwing the Banished in there, but at the same time, it seems like they're making it fresh enough for new people. Like when I
Mm.
was watching
Yeah.
the trailer, I barely knew anything about the Banished other than they were brutes. And so they name dropped the Banished, and I'm like, oh. And then in reactions of like Halo lore aficionados, they're like, oh my god, the Banished! Oh! And I
So
was like,
here's
oh no.
another thing. So here's the thing that worries me is that it feels like, so I almost don't want to say anything, because I feel like saying things might ruin stuff for people, because it seems like a lot of the stuff that was in Halo Wars 2 looks like it's going to be obviously directly correlated with um Infinite. And looking at what happens in Halo 5 Guardians, which I know nobody wants to do, but it has to be done. and look and looking at what happens in Halo Wars 2, it's impossible not to draw the lines, because at the end of Halo 5 Guardians, there's the after credits scene of Cortana humming along to a little song, and it shows another Halo ring.
Mm.
But
Mm.
but again, if anybody cares about spoilers for Halo Wars 2, stop me now. Because this
When
is
did
your
Halo
last
Wars
chance.
2 come out?
2 years ago, I think.
We'll wait until we get to Halo 5 and onward
Yeah,
before we hit
but
that.
there's something I want to touch on with that once we get there.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Uh,
So I wanted to talk about something in Halo 1 that I found interesting. And this is going to be directed at you, Holmick. In Halo 1, we have like an open field level, a night/stealth level, a beach level, a snow level, a jungle level, at least at the beginning of when you meet the Flood.
343.
Yeah, 343. How do you think Halo 1 handled using such common level tropes in more interesting ways?
It gave it such a diverse palette. You're in alien ships. You're in freaking hilly landscapes. It in my opinion, like I don't care about fucking cliche levels if
Mm.
they add to the overall player experience of the game.
yeah,
They gave you such a diverse environment. You see, Halo 5, they threw you on different planets in order to give you those different environments.
Right.
Halo was one fucking ring floating in space that had all those environments on it.
But it made sense for them to have those environments.
Exactly. And it didn't over convolute the story because you're in one location.
Mhm.
And so going to going from an alien enemy ship to a fucking giant island in the middle of an ocean, it was just fine to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
frankly, it was amazing because all those levels, Halo and a fucking Silent Cartographer, are my favorite fucking levels in any first-person shooter for that reason.
Mhm.
Because they're pretty much open-ended.
Yeah.
Well, Silent Cartographer is open-ended the entire time.
Yeah.
They're like, here's an island, do the mission.
On you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey.
Whereas Halo, it's straightforward until it's straightforward. You have to do a little bit of exploring.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it's straightforward until you get to find the dropships.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, find the dropships. And you're like, cool. So I'm it looks like with Halo Infinite, and I hope to God that they're just dropping you into large areas where there's
Mhm.
multiple missions you can do.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Now the only issue I have with it is that they clearly like they have a map with like fucking mission markers and stuff on it. And I hope that they just give you the mission at that area and then they leave you to your own devices to figure out how to figure it out.
Mm.
Because it looks like that's what they're going for. They're trying to bring it back to Halo 1's roots. I don't want it to be an entire open world though. I do not.
Yeah,
Like
I
agree.
agree. I agree.
like I would prefer it to be like controlled linear like just like big like little sandboxes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Just like little sandboxes and an overall story. They drop you into an area like in the trailer. You crash land in this one area. You're trying to repair the Pelican. Once you've repaired the Pelican and you destroy the triple A the AA guns. Oh Jesus! Once you've repaired the guns, you have the option to leave and go to the next area, which I think would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because Halo 1, and that's where Halo 2 faltered. Is all the missions were
Yeah.
linear from that point on. All of them
Yeah.
linear. I'm trying to think if there is one that isn't, but no,
I
there
mean,
are.
there's that's the thing with Halo. There's areas that I
pretty
wouldn't
hallways.
call.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like with Halo 2 compared to Halo 1, like taking like say the Silent Cartographer or even or Halo as an example, where it literally like opens up and you go Warthog Wild. The compared to Halo 2 is it's all a corridor. There are areas that are more open, but at the end of the day, those more open areas lead to a funneled in area that leads to another open. It's the actual objective of where you're going is incredibly linear,
Yes.
and it gives you that direction to head in, whether you like it or not.
hmm And that also brings up the issue with it. If it is open world, if it's gonna be just get fucking empty, like as you're doing shit.
Yeah, that would.
And then so
Yeah.
you're just driving around it completely empty. You've killed all the enemies and all that
Yeah.
shit. Like, I just don't want it to be monotonous.
Yeah.
Like, hey, first person shooters work well with constant action and constant progression.
Yeah.
Cough, cough, doom, cough, cough.
Yeah.
Oh my fucking god!
Doom's great.
Like, there's a reason why I did a vocal cover of that fucking series. Like,
Yeah.
it did such a goddamn amazing job with the new Dooms.
Yep.
Like, they are a traditional, just linear experience, but the way they do fast pace and combat in that game, you want to talk about badass.
Oh
Yeah.
yes.
This is an interesting thing that I'm hoping Infinite does is from the gameplay trailer. I'm hoping that because something that and it's another thing to compare to with the other Halo games with Infinite is in Halo 1, 2, and 3 you're a tank. You're a big beefy Spartan dude who runs around and punches thing in the face. But as the series went on past that, the gameplay style changed a lot. And especially in Halo 4 and 5, it's a lot more fast paced. But I feel like they didn't do it as well. And they do a lot of changes. It's a controversial opinion, but that's a personal opinion. And I'm hoping that Infinite is a lot more akin to Doom than it is to, say, Halo 4 or 5.
May I pose a question? This is going to kind of take us back. And
Sure.
this is, again, an evolutionary question.
Sure.
Which Halo game did you think had the most growth as far as game mechanics? From which game to which game was the biggest jump in game mechanics, in your opinion, in a positive way?
In a positive way,
In a positive way.
3 to Reach. I know
3
that
to
when the Reach beta came out, I remember how ridiculously controversial armor abilities were.
Yeah.
Armor abilities were like such a hotly debated topic because a lot of people hated them.
Yeah.
But they existed in 3, though, to an extent. As
Yeah, you had that equipment that you could throw out. Yeah.
But the way that they were implemented in Reach, there was a lot of people, even that I knew, that said that it ruined the gameplay experience and it was awful. And then when the game came out, it was a lot more favorably received. And it turns out, hey, they actually worked really well. and they were implemented really well. And I think that was a big shift in the way that Halo was played. There was a lot more mobility
Yeah.
in and once you added those armor abilities and a lot more variance to because that was the other thing. I remember loadouts, the way that loadouts changed as well was like a big deal for the beta. People were like there was a lot of that's one thing I've noticed with as the newer Halo games have come out from Reach onward, people complain that it's becoming a COD clone, and I don't agree with that sentiment in the slightest. I do believe it's changing, and I do believe the game's gameplay style has changed a lot. I do not think it's becoming a COD clone, but I think the jump from Reach to 4 was a step in the wrong direction, whereas I feel like the jump from 3 to Reach was in the right direction contextually for what Reach was.
Fair. Yeah.
Because Reach was a jump back in time.
Yeah.
To a whole different breed of Spartan, and they play a whole lot differently than Master Chief plays, say in Halo 1, 2, and 3.
As they should.
Whereas to then jump back forward and have Chief play like that, it almost feels like a mechanical continuity error.
yeah, it kind of does. Yeah, it's like, why didn't they use this in 1, 2, and 3? I mean, if they had it the whole time, because they had it in the games that chronologically took place before Halo 1, why didn't Chief have this stuff? I absolutely see what you're saying.
A big part that I could definitely see. By the way, my opinion is 1 to 2. That's as far as mechanics.
So to dissect your question, you asked what where the biggest jump was. I think from 1 to 2, where you got the ability to dual wield.
Dual wielding, boarding vehicles.
Yes,
more vehicles.
That was a big one, actually.
Yeah, EMP in enemies.
Vehicles.
At least I think you could do that in 2, when you could full charge a plasma pistol and stop a vehicle with it.
Yeah, the EMP. Yeah.
So that was.
I think that was in Halo 3 when that first
3.
happened.
Okay. So from 1 to 2, we have the ability to board vehicles, which changes your relationship with combat. Because usually, if there's enemies in vehicles, either you're not really meant to fight them off, or you have a vehicle. Now, you could just get your own from them, and that changes the way that you interact with that part of the level. And of course, dual wielding.
And it adds to how much more badass you feel.
Yes.
Dude's rolling up on you in a ghost, you jump on the front, you fucking just roundhouse kick him off of the fucking ghost. It's yours.
Yeah.
It was so I love boarding vehicles in Halo 2. Jumping on a tank, beating the shit out of it until it either explodes or you get inside.
Yep.
The fact that you're just beating the fuck out of a car until it explodes with your fist. Pretty goddamn metal.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then like you were saying, from 2 to 3, you have equipment. You also had different styles of grenades there with the sticky ones and the fire bombs. But I feel like those are a bit less. But the equipment, I feel like, was one of the big changes. 3 also gave us the Spartan laser, which is my favorite thing ever.
I think there's another relationship as well that I think I agree with in parallel with 1 to 2 from 3 to Reach. Is I feel like those jumps are significant, and the point that you brought up about the way that it changes the way that you think about the battlefield is interesting. I think I realize so I think, again, this is another thing that I suppose we've got to bring up is the big difference between multiplayer and the campaign. I feel like
we've been talking a lot about single player.
Yeah, I'm gonna dive into that with 2 and 3 because 1 wasn't really.
Like that's where the big difference is. I think for me is mechanically with the campaign. I feel like I actually agree. Halo 1 to 2. I feel like the online space with multiplayer, the way that you played online matches was fundamentally changed by Reach.
Agree.
I think that's the big jump. Whereas I feel like armor abilities don't really affect the campaign all that much. The jetpack is really the only one that causes a stir in the campaign, I guess.
Which is fun.
Which isn't a bad thing by any means. But let's be real. Who the fuck uses armor lock in the campaign?
It's funny to say no you to a rocket guy in multiplayer.
Yeah.
Just be like, nope.
My favorite thing with armor lock was if you got the time, not only the EMP, but if you timed it right, you could just fuck a ghost.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And
That was the best part.
that changed the relationship not just with the people that had armor lock, but the people that were using the vehicles. It made you paranoid to try to splatter somebody. Because what if they have armor lock and they blow you up? And I always thought that was really interesting. So with Halo 1, you know, we were talking about level design and everything a little while ago. So here's a big question, and it's something that I've always noticed about Halo 1. You play through unique levels like we talked about until the library. After the library, you're just playing previous levels backwards. And we can assume that to a degree that was to save space because, I mean, Halo 1 is almost 20 years old. And they did not have the same memory storage capabilities that we do now. So, while I'm sure they definitely did that to save space, how else do you think, whether intentional or not, it helped or hindered the game?
I liked it. I thought it was a great way to work within limitations.
Agree.
Because the environment, it was from a storage. It was from that point the story was getting dark, right?
Yes.
The entire time you were the badass, like quiet, like fucking super soldier, and now at that point you were the fucking you had to save the galaxy, and so you were going back through all these areas you were just triumphantly parading through. And you were now in kind of like a frenzied, like, oh, we gotta stop this shit from happening, and the environment reflected that.
Yeah,
because the areas now kind of felt war torn.
Yeah, very.
And now you also had a fucking zombie apocalypse going on.
Yeah.
And so I thought it worked. It was a really good way to work within limitations, and thematically, it was done extremely well.
Agree.
Would I prefer to do completely new levels? Absolutely. But as a fucking 12, 11-year-old playing that shit for the first time, I thought it was dope as fuck.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's something as well for me that that's very emblematic of the using the limitations to your advantage, in the sense that it also helps highlight just how fucked everything is. Especially with the Flood. My favorite comparison of that is the difference between Pillar of Autumn and the Maw. Because of the way that it bookends the story, the way that you start on the Pillar of Autumn, the way that you end on the Maw, I feel like it's the perfect way to bookend not only the entire journey that you've been on for the entire game, but it also just highlights the sheer devastation that the Flood has caused.
Where you save Chief in the earlier part of the game is where you save Captain Keyes is where he dies.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing is thematically so well thought out, and it was done within their limitations for the time too.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing was so well bookended, as you put it, and so when I did not care, I still don't care playing through those levels, because it's just from a story standpoint, I just love it.
Yeah, I agree.
I do.
I agree, and it's not that you're doing the same objectives either. You're just it has the same set pieces, sure, but you're doing different things, and I think that you're absolutely right. They worked within the limitations that they had, and again, like you said, Homek, I would have liked to have had new levels too. But honestly, I think that purely from a narrative, a story, a plot point, I think that what they did, while it was definitely at least partially contributed to not having enough space to make more levels, I think it's better off having done the whole backtrack thing. I think that it ties a nice bow that we wouldn't otherwise have.
Yep.
Now, I personally can't talk about the levels in Halo 1 without talking about my favorite level, which is the Maw. And we talked about it, how it was all war torn by the Flood, and how like a bunch of stuff's broken, some of the doors are busted up, the Flood has kind of ruined everything in there. But what really makes the Maw for me, and this probably isn't a surprise to anyone, is the Warthog run.
Yeah.
Now, I'll get into the Warthog run in a second, but there's something about the level design that I want to talk about specifically the Warthog run part.
It doesn't make any logical fucking sense whatsoever.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's the thing, though. Like, up to this point, you've gone through the Pillar of Autumn at the beginning of the game, and it was all tight corridors and everything. And you've gone through the Maw, and with the exception of the engine room, it's all tight corridors. Everything's all like very constricted, and it makes the ship, I wouldn't say it makes it feel small, but it kind of makes it feel small. And then you get in a Warthog and you drive a vehicle through a spaceship. It makes the level and the Pillar of Autumn as a set piece feel so much more massive. Even though it makes no sense, it still gives you that scope, that feel of, I was in this thing the whole time? This thing is massive. What is happening? And then, of course, you get the actual Warthog run, which is still to this day probably one of my favorite sequences in a first-person shooter ever.
Yep. Entirely agree.
Now, I think the Maw used to be my favorite level for that exact same reason. It's such a climactic moment. You got all the forces coming together, all the enemy factions. Because at that point, you've got the Covenant, you got the Flood, you got the Forerunners, the Sentinels after you as well. All three of those factions are trying to kill you. And then you got the Warthog run to just tie it all off with epic music by fucking Marty O'Connell and
so good.
Mike Salvatore.
So good.
But my favorite level is Silent Cartographer.
And honestly, that's my second favorite, so I get that for sure.
For the sheer design of it, and that's so. My kid, the Maw, like inner kid, I love the Maw. Adult analytical gamer nerd, I love Silent Cartographer.
It's so pretty. Like the whole beach part before you go into stuff, it's so pretty, especially for the time.
The beach charge,
yes, with all the Marines.
Normandy beach storming.
Yes, and them making that an achievement in the anniversary edition to get through that beach charge without losing any Marines on a harder difficulty. Genius. Yep. And another thing
to make explosions.
Just don't turn on that one skull if you're going to be using a bunch of grenades. Or you'll get yeeted over the side of a mountain and you die horribly while Ben laughs at you.
That was amazing.
That was awful. That was so bad. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it will be in a video that will be coming out tomorrow. You get to see me get yeeted over a mountain. It's terrifying. But so the Warthog run, and I'm gonna come back to this when we get to Halo 3 for obvious reasons. But I think that it gives you, maybe it's just as a kid, but it gave you such an adrenaline rush of like when Cortana's like, when the engines explode, they're going to generate a temperature of 100 million degrees. Like, you can't imagine that. That's just a giant number, and it's scary. So you're just like, that's pretty hot. That might burn me a little bit. I should leave. And so you do. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Now,
hope you pack your
So I feel like we can move on to Halo 2. I think we
before we do,
sure.
I have to pee like a racehorse.
Please go for it.
All right, I'll be right back. You keep talking and just inform me what's going on.
Will do.
So I'm gonna wait until Homy gets back from his bathroom break. But before we move on to Halo 2, we do have something very, very important to talk about.
Oh.
More importantly, we have someone very, very important to talk about who will, I imagine, we will have to talk about consistently throughout, because not only is it one of the best characters in the series, it's also one of the characters in the series that gets done the most dirty, and because that is Cortana.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say this. On paper, putting Cortana on Windows 10 on paper was a great idea. In execution, it's dog shit, and I hate it.
If you think that fucking Halo 5 did Cortana dirty, Windows did it worse.
It's like, if you've got your computer set up wrong, you can't even talk about Cortana without your computer talking back to you. It's terrible.
Also, fuck you, Melissa. My driving is fantastic. You can't prove anything.
Well, I mean, there's proof that's coming out in like I don't know, like 16 hours.
This is fake news.
Yeah,
This has been edited. This has been edited to make me look bad.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, you're still bad, so.
Look, this is not the point.
I literally watched you drive off 2 separate cliffs in the same level with a warthog, and died and lost our vehicle both times.
Did we respawn?
You did, because I wasn't with you, because I would never get in a vehicle with you, Ben.
I have various clips of evidence that would beg to differ.
Yeah, it's called a bad decision, much like letting you
Look,
drive. Bad decision.
Nobody can claim I'm a bad driver if they don't survive to tell anybody.
This right here, Ben, and I know I've told you this before, but I really want to hit this point home. This is why we can't have nice things.
Look, if nobody's alive to tell anybody about it, then you can't prove that I'm a bad driver.
What are we blaming Ben for?
Being a very terrible driver, and also him pixelizing his camera deliciously.
We were talking about how I was a fantastic driver, and Jacob has never had any issue with my driving in Halo whatsoever.
You look like a light bright, my dude. I'm just gonna like poke you with little pegs, and then just. Oh, it's amazing.
I can't help it.
This is really funny. Like I can see the individual squares.
The only issue I've had with people driving is them getting out of the car and murdering me.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oh my.
Yeah.
That wouldn't.
Oh, you'll fucking know tomorrow.
I don't know what you're talking about.
See, Homic would rather have me drive.
I don't know about that.
I'd rather kill both of you and drive myself.
I see how it is.
That's fair to be honest. That's
Even if we were heading to a fucking Dairy Queen.
This isn't Halo anymore. This is just real life.
I'd tie to train tracks and I'd drive there myself.
Well, Ben,
toss your DQ blizzards on your corpse.
Here's your cotton candy, bitch. Ben's been in my car, so we just got to get you in there at some point, Homix, so that way we can, have the full experience of having me drive you somewhere, because it's terrifying. I can assure you.
Hopefully, if we stop being dumb with COVID by next year, hopefully we can get to meeting up in fucking MomoCon.
That would be great. Although I don't know that I would drive there because I'm lazy.
Jacob drives in real life like I do in Halo.
Well, I hit less trees, so and rocks.
But you hit more pedestrians.
And well, they're extra points, Ben. What am I supposed to do?
So just before after you went on your bathroom break, I mentioned that once you were back, before we moved on to Halo 2, we have something very important we need to talk about. We have a certain someone we need to talk about, and that someone is Cortana.
Yeah, we haven't really mentioned Blue Baby at all, have we?
Yeah, because it's painful to think about.
Look, we'll get to Halo 5.
Oh my god. She was such a great... She was what the player needed.
Yeah.
Because Chief was the silent soldier, for the most part. Can't really... They had to use Steve Down's sultry tones, though. They had to give him a few...
Oh, yeah.
A few lines in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just can't. But she was... Shut up, guys. She was just such a good foil to Chief, like a good narrative driving force.
Yeah.
Number one, because she's a she's an AI, which made sense. It made sense for her to be that role from a narrative standpoint and a gameplay standpoint.
Yep.
And she had a fun personality too.
Yeah.
She was the perfect side character, or pretty much more or less main character, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because you are the main character otherwise.
Yeah, so that's actually a really interesting point that you say that, because it was something I was going to bring up, and it's something I discussed with a friend of mine a long time ago, was the argument that could be said that for the original Halo trilogy, that Cortana is in fact the main character. Because...
To an extent, that differs in Halo 2 because of the Arbiter. I would say Halo 2, the Arbiter is the main character.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. But the thing with Cortana, I love how she's a humbling agent as well.
Yes.
Like the quips that she throws out and oh really, are you that badass guy, kind of attitude she has, of the right, okay, focus up, nut up, boy, you got shit to do, is I just they Chief and Cortana play off each other so well
Yeah.
that I'd perfect.
especially in Halo 2 is when they really started
Yeah.
driving that, because in the cutscenes that they would have, they played off each other very well.
Yeah.
It was just, they built the dynamic super well, culminating to the end of Halo 3, and you didn't have to read the books to understand that they meant a lot to each other.
Yeah.
You
Imagine that.
you got that feeling all on its own. But so I love Cortana as a character, I loved her. To the point where she's, again, Halo's staying power in multimedia is an enigma to me. It astounds me, because again, sorry to go back on an old point, but novels, comics, movies, TV shows, I can't think of many other things that have done that. Not some. Most well said Diablo. Diablo doesn't have a TV show, or has had movies that weren't like animated shorts or something like that. StarCraft. The only Warcraft is probably the only one that I could see.
That's fair.
World of Warcraft is probably the only one that I could see in that vein. But that's the only. But that one's an MMO. We're talking about a fucking first-person shooter.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a goddamn first-person shooter.
Yeah.
Like, the other ones are RPGs, and those are expected to have expansive fucking narratives.
Right, yeah.
And whereas, goddamn, you're a run, jump, shoot man. You got a gun, and he's the Halo guy. He doesn't afraid of anything. He shoots the aliens. And the fact that there's so much lore to that, and that they can create such compelling characters like Cortana in that sort of a narrative, is such a testament to Halo as a series, like, story.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Well, so when I was like writing up this concept, which I just thought about the idea for this podcast about a week ago, and I just kind of hit the ground running with it, and I'm like, I want to do this. I want to go now. I've got all these ideas. I want to do it. Which is why I start with Halo, because I know we all have a lot to say about Halo, especially since there's a new Halo coming out. Oh yeah,
got a bunch of losers you can talk to about this.
Absolutely. But I was thinking about, like, maybe there was like a little extra thing we could add, and I thought, why don't we give games a bit of a unique rating system as we go? Since the podcast is going, like, each episode is going to be about a series of games or a partial series of games. We could hit each game as we go with one of 4 ratings. Here's what I came up with, okay? You can give a game a rating of essential, which means if you're going to play a game from this series, this part of it is absolutely essential. Do not miss it for any reason whatsoever. Second one that you can give it is recommended, which means, I guess, like, if you could only play one, maybe not this one, but I highly recommend you play this one. Stuff like that. The third one is optional, like, if you really like the series, give it a try, but I mean, it's no big deal if you miss out on it. And the last one is just no. So with that said, where would you guys put Halo 1?
Can we all say it on the count of 3?
Sure.
Or Halo
I'm pretty
1?
sure.
Yeah, all right. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Essential.
Necessary. Essential. That's the word. Essential. I'm not an icon before. I don't do great scale.
One job, Homic! One job! But no, it's absolutely essential. I really do feel it's essential. Yeah. I feel like even if you didn't start with Halo 1, it's so good. It's not just the plot of it that makes it good. It's just everything that it did right that the future games in this series would continue to do. I feel like it's definitely essential.
And other games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, so many other games. Fucking vehicle combat from like, I think it was probably the most, it revolutionized console controls for FPS.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like for that, like Counter-Strike, like, PC was the prime way to fucking play it, but it gave console players like a good option to the point where, given a choice, I'm a pleb. I will still use my controller to play
Yes.
Halo to this day.
Yes,
Like,
I'm entirely with Homek on this one.
now, will I get destroyed by people who are god tier at KBM? Yes, I will. But I don't care because I will be comfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with my A button.
I do the jumps and I do the punch.
The pouch. And like, so Halo revolutionized, the first game revolutionized so much. And it is such a time capsule as far as this is where so many things started changing for the game industry, as far as like Bungie just revolutionized so many things.
It was genre defining. Defining,
it was
not defining.
combat evolved for a reason.
Yeah. Which, like on the box, that sounds a little pretentious. This is combat evolved, but
it was.
Like, it was. They earned that name. And I'm really glad that it didn't stop there. I'm glad that we got more Halo games, which the next one, of course, was Halo 2. Haha, segue.
Nice. As long as I don't have to remember a rating scale, we should be good.
Don't worry, I will remind you and watch as you come up with yet another word that isn't on the scale.
What was that? Required?
Necessary. Yeah, it's not my fault you had to pick a fucking 3. Never mind, my word is just as many syllables. More, actually.
You tried, Homek. I'm so proud of you for trying.
I can't win.
Long way for a shortcut.
It's like you playing Uno last night, am I right?
I fucking won.
Believe me, I heard, but for the first hour and a half that I was there, you were not winning. You had like 26 cars. I saw that. It was glorious.
And I fucking came back, motherfucker!
We have 2 Uno winners here. What happened to you, Jacob?
I played with you, Ben. That's what happened. It was a nightmare. Oh, yeah, rate it 10 out of 10. Oh my god. Perfect. So, as far as Halo 2 goes, I do want to start with a fairly broad question. And we touched on this a little bit, but what do you guys think Halo 2 did better than Halo 1? And what do you think it did worse than Halo 1? Homek, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Ignore Ben.
I was gonna let Ben do it. I started like almost this entire fucking time. So, multiplayer.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't really touched on multiplayer yet, so let's do that.
Yeah. Like in multiple ways. Number one, it was the first. It was the first stable, like Xbox Live was like the first super stable, like successful console online multiplayer like platform.
Yeah.
And Halo 2 was their fucking flagship for that.
Yep.
Also, they introduced, I believe that's when they introduced map packs, adding that they also not that that's a good thing, but it changed the game for sure. Like adding maps after a game's release. Granted, you had to get another disc in order to download them onto your console, but like they added content to your game, and having clans and a ranking system, and again it was the biggest jump in mechanics too, like the biggest meaningful jump in mechanics. Being able to board vehicles, dual wielding, being able to play as the bad guys. You're able to play as the elites. And also it was a big graphical leap too.
Yeah,
at the time, a huge graphical leap. Because I'm pretty sure all the cutscenes were all those. The other game was like in-engine cutscenes, where this was the first game that was like it was pre-rendered cutscenes.
Yeah, wooshy flashy stuff.
Yeah. And it's to this day, Halo 2 is still, in my opinion, it was my religion. I would get home from school, knock out my I would knock out my homework in fucking study hall, where all my friends were dicking around in study hall the last period.
For those of you who didn't have study hall in school, study hall was a period of the day where you could either, it was just a free period where you could just fucking,
You hung out in the classroom, and you could take that time to work on stuff or dick around within reason. I would always finish my homework completely. Always finish my homework. Get home. Parents would be like, "Homework done?" I'm like, "Yup." And I would jump onto my Xbox, hop onto my clan, and just fucking go and just play Halo for hours. Halo 2 for hours. While listening to Dave Chappelle. Sometimes blasting "fuck your cat" over the mic.
Oh,
I know when you're rich, motherfucker.
oh, those skits were so good. Were so good. But yeah, like
So yeah.
I can't talk about multiplayer yet because I started multiplayer with Halo 3. So when we get to Halo 3 and we talk about multiplayer, I'll have more to contribute. But I feel like for 2, I feel like the maps were very memorable. Like I barely touched the multiplayer in Halo 2, but I still remember Blood Gulch.
Oh yeah.
To be fair,
Blood
it was
Gulch,
in the first, right?
In Halo 2 it was called coagulation.
Yeah.
But yeah, still, like Halo just had iconic maps. Like I'm trying. Zanzibar was the most iconic Halo 2 map because that had so many cool like Halo 2 game mechanics involved in it. I'm trying to think of another specifically Halo 2 map. That's the one that stands out to me the most, to be honest.
Yeah, Zanzibar is like
I played the shit out of Zanzibar.
Yeah. I remember what's the flood one, Backwash?
Yes, Backwash. That was one of the map packs.
Yeah.
And I forget the name of it, but the one where you're in the suburbs. It might have just been called Suburbs. I can't remember what it was though. Where you were just in the suburb area. There was like a medical tent. There was a crashed scarab. I forget the name of that level.
Sanctuary?
No, but that's another iconic one.
Yeah.
That's where zombies that's where I remember playing zombies.
Yes.
And like that, because Halo 2 is when zombies was invented. Because you got the sword, and the sword users were the zombies.
Yeah.
It was zombie. And then that's been in an iconic Halo playlist game for the rest of the series. Like it was such a it's so good.
So goddamn good.
So good. And they would go on to continue to make improvements. And my favorite, of course, is Halo 3 as far as multiplayer is concerned. But again, I'll get to that when we get there. But I feel like Halo 3 multiplayer wouldn't have been nearly what it was without the foundation that 2 laid down for it.
Yep.
Now, as can be a testament to how horribly I thrashed you in our race in Halo 2. I am very, very, very familiar and with Halo 2's campaign as well. I played that nonstop. Whenever I wasn't doing multiplayer, I was playing the Halo campaign. Or trying to convince my brother to play through it with me or something like that. I was obsessed and still am. As can be attested by my various Halo figures on my wall. But no, the Halo 2, out of all the Halos, I played Halo 2 the most. Completely the most. Story and multiplayer.
Makes sense.
To the point where I almost memorized every single line in the game. It's gross.
Okay, so what you're saying is we're gonna get a HomykSmash fan dub of the entire Halo 2 cutscene list, right?
I need this.
Tune in Halo-vember.
That's good stuff. That is good stuff. And I that's one of the highlights in November is just, and that's something you do every year. And not only
I've been
do
doing
you
it for
do
the
it,
past 4 years.
yeah, not only do you do it, it's for charity too. And that's very admirable that you take the yearly event and you do something so good with it. So
Thank
shout
you.
outs
My
to you,
wallet hates
Homic.
me.
Yeah.
My wallet hates me every year.
But shout outs to you for doing something like that, taking something that you love and being able to help others with it. That's fantastic to me.
Thanks, dude. It's all to get 343 Senpai to notice me. and for them to notice me and let me voice in one of their games.
Give us Spartan 2, Homic.
Oh, I would pay to see
I would
that.
pee.
I don't think you understand like how much I would cover my room in jism. If someone from 343 was like, "Hey, we want you to voice some random ass Marine in our game," I'd be like, "Yeah, oh really?" I love the franchise, and because when I first did Halo November, it was just to play through the series, and then the next year, I was like, I want to make it mean something though, because it means something to me.
Yeah.
But I want to make it like something really special for my chat to like really attach to and get behind. And so doing an entire month charity just made sense to me. Good cause for supporting a series that I fucking adore.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Hell
despite some of its shortcomings, which
Well,
we'll get to.
Oh yeah, and speaking of getting to that, in the single player of Halo 2, we talked a bit about the Arbiter levels and how, the first and the last one are pretty okay, but how the middle isn't super great. Thinking just about the level designs of Halo 2 in general. Overall thoughts on that? Just the level designs themselves.
I liked them, but they were extremely linear compared to the first game.
Yeah.
Very much so. Lots of tight corridors, they had some spots where they'd open up. But even then they were just big corridors.
Yeah. There were
Like,
wider corridors you could move around more in.
And then
the
back to the
environments
funnel.
were the environments were at the time gorgeous though.
Yeah.
Like when you first land on Delta Halo in the drop pod, and you bust out, you fight through the temple, you drive out past the temple to get to, and you see like the big water area. It's like going under the water. It's gorgeous. Like, I said this earlier. Halo 1 had the best, was amazing at through gameplay, painting out how much of a badass you are.
Mm-hmm.
Halo 2 did that with gameplay and cutscenes.
Yeah.
They took the time to, not only because you're able to board vehicles now and fucking do all this other cool shit, and then all of a sudden they're like, Chief's just gonna fucking grab a bomb and just fly through space, blow a fucking goddamn thing. And then he's gonna drop out of orbit in a tiny freaking coffin, bust out with a rocket launcher, and start blowing shit up. And they did such an amazing job every time. He's gonna fucking sprint away from a giant melty laser beam, which I'm sure some lore nerds figured out the speed at which he had to be traveling to actually effectively run away from that beam, with a ship moving as fast as a minimum of like however fast. Chief had to be running really goddamn fast. But anyway, so they paint your character as such a badass in your gameplay and also in the cutscenes. And then they tell a really interesting story with the Arbiter. Despite his levels not being as good. It was a very Sonic Adventure feeling. Sonic Adventure 2, if you understand where I'm coming from with that. Where the best parts of the game for Sonic Adventure, it's like Sonic Adventure 2 to Halo 2. The Chief levels are to Halo 2, as the Sonic and Shadow levels are to Sonic Adventure.
To Sonic Adventure.
Yep.
Yes.
And then the Arbiter levels are more akin to
Knuckles
to
or Tails.
fucking Knuckles and
Yeah. That's a fair comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, because you remember it for I will constantly. That's an interesting parallel, because I played the fuck out of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. I played the fuck out of that game for the Chow Garden, but the only levels that I did for the Chow Garden
were Sonic and Shadow level. Those are the only fun fucking levels in the game.
Which reinforced that, though. So, like, every time you would play, you would only play the good levels, which made the game as a whole seem better than it was.
Exactly. Which is why years later, when people were like, "This game's shit," it didn't compete with me at first. I'm like, I fucking love this game. and, and then when you said I hated the Arbiter levels at first, when we first talked about it, it didn't click with me at first because I'm like, I fucking love all the levels, though. That's not true. Whenever I got the chance, I would sprint through the Arbiter levels.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was Halo 2, the one where you're like on a horizontal elevator for like ever. Was that Halo 2?
Yes, and you're
It
slowly
sucks.
going down.
Yeah.
That was an Arbiter level. That was the
Yeah.
second Arbiter level.
Yeah.
And I hated every second of it.
Was it when we were playing? Because I know we played. Well, we were gonna play through Halo 2 co-op on Legendary, but then it was awful. And we
Iron
did
on
heroic
or whatever. Yeah.
But didn't we break it? I'm sure we broke. Was it that level or was it the boss fight that we broke?
Probably both. I do remember the elevator being weird, though. I just don't remember how.
Yeah. I just, God, we can't play Halo together without breaking everything.
It's true. It is
To
a
be
fact.
fair, Master Chief Collection makes it very easy to break the game.
Yeah, that's
also
true.
fair. Yeah.
Although I will say, I think Halo 2 Anniversary is probably the best looking Halo game.
I mean, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like,
It's especially those cutscenes are absolutely fantastic.
the comparison, unfortunately for me, is that that's a professional fucking like movie animation studio.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like 343 hired them. They said it was me for my. That'd be again the equivalence. That was me going up to Hypercole 64 and be like, "Hey Cole, I'm gonna pay you to edit this video for me. All right, I'll help you. I'll help provide footage for you, but you're gonna make it look sexy as shit." He made it look fucking sexy as shit. It wouldn't have looked nearly as sexy if I did it myself. So me being 343 in this case,
Right?
Yeah, I feel like. Yes, although I do feel like I actually don't know who the studio that worked on those cutscenes was.
Blur Studios.
Murder Studios
Blur.
did a fantastic job with them and
Did
breathed a
amazing.
whole new life into those cutscenes that and I think a really interesting thing that I enjoyed about both of the anniversary games is the ability to switch back and forward on the fly between the graphical styles.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
absolutely.
that was something that brought a whole new level of wow, this was squares before now. this was just squares.
This person's hair was a rectangle. Now it's got
So there's something in Halo 2 that I don't even necessarily want to say that it's controversial, but I just kind of want to get opinions. Leaving Cortana behind. I've always hated that. I felt like it was unnecessary.
It felt like it did. Again, I played this game a lot now at this point, and I would say I do make fun of it now because it is a very forced plot point. Like, why wouldn't she be able to activate the explosion from, or like what is the issue with trying to chance a remote detonation?
Yeah.
Like, because we've seen what happens when it doesn't remote detonate, and the effects of that are Halo 3. So if she didn't stay there and they chanced a remote detonation, it was a plot, it was a driving force for the plot, is what it was. It was to force a notoriously frowned upon cliffhanger.
Yep.
Finishing this fight.
Like, notoriously panned. Like, I remember when the game first came out, there were like top 10 disappointments. And or like Halo 2 was on their year. Like it was Game Pro magazine. It was their it was like top best games. It was their top list of shit, or it was like best fucking game. I think it won their Halo 2 won their game of the year.
Oh wow.
But it also won their most disappointments of the year as well. Because it was like the game was awesome, the gameplay was amazing, blah 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 blah. We really enjoyed the story up until the fucking cliffhanger ending, and like so, I remember that ending was notoriously panned by everyone who played the game as being lazy, or it was just cut content, is what it was, because people have restored like the actual. There's supposed to be another Warthog run,
Oh.
is what it was.
Oh.
There's supposed to be a Warthog run through the Forerunner ship. I don't know how, but it was supposed to be.
That would have been amazing.
You can actually find it on YouTube. Somebody partially restored the run, through data mining and stuff like that. But again, like I don't know how I would have felt with doing another Warthog run at the end of Halo 2. It felt perfect at the end of Halo 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Halo 2, I understand why they cut it. If they were like if they play tested it and they're like, does this feel unnecessary, or just kind of like, do we want this to really be our thing? Do we want to be the FPS car guys, the guys who do we want to be known as the guys that do the car chase at the end of every single movie? Like,
yeah.
That's fair.
So, yeah, Fox has got it. There you go. Fox
Yeah, it's
fucking quick.
although as controversial as the ending is, I'm glad that it ended up being what it was, because it gave us Halo 3.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Halo 3 was always going to happen.
Yeah. But
it built
I mean,
up
it
the
gave
hype.
us it gave us the Halo 3 that we got.
And it gave them the slogan, finish the
Finish
fight.
the fight.
Yeah.
Which was such a we'll get to Halo 3.
Don't worry, we're almost there, because the next thing I want to talk about is how underwhelming I feel the very last level is.
Of Halo 2?
Of Halo 2, yeah.
Great Journey?
Yeah. I find it to be incredibly underwhelming, because you go over here, you do a thing, then you go back and the door's open, here's a boss fight. Okay, bye.
Again, I think a big part of that was because of the cut content.
Yeah.
Which, funnily enough, that's another point. Halo 2 is what I think Halo 2 is the only one that had boss fights.
I mean,
one definitely didn't.
Spark.
I don't count Guilty Spark.
I mean,
that was,
you glare at him a few times with your gun and he explodes. So
yeah, you played Cat with a laser pointer. Because all he just stands there while you just ass blast him.
Yep.
Yeah, I think. Well, no, technically Halo 3, but they were a recurring boss. The Scarabs were technically the boss fights of Halo 3.
Yeah.
And Brute Chieftains, in a way, were boss fights, and or mini bosses in their own right. But actual set piece boss fights, I think Halo 2 is the only game that had set piece boss fights.
Yeah.
There's only two.
I think so.
There's only two.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you had John DiMaggio, and then you had Tartarus. But a lot of people don't know that was John DiMaggio, by the way.
Yeah.
The betrayer. A lot of people didn't know that.
Now I'm just imagining them replacing that model with just John DiMaggio in the game. Just replacing him.
Or oh my god. I'm blanking on the character's name. Jake the dog.
Jake the dog
from Adventure Time.
Oh, beautiful.
Or Bender.
He's
like,
God.
Bite my shiny metal ass.
Or Waka from Final Fantasy X and just sit there and moan the whole time.
Or Marcus Phoenix.
Yeah. DiMaggio's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. So going back, because the main part of that was the boss fight with Tartarus at the end.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then having like Halo 2 is a bunch of set pieces. It had a bunch of set pieces. Guiding Johnson. I will say, yes, I absolutely hate baby like slowly following Johnson to the control room is
Yeah.
agonizing,
Hmm.
especially on higher difficulty when your Banshee is a fucking glass.
Yeah.
Like it, and the enemies can easily just like auto lock onto you and hit you
Yep.
and melt you so that you're panicking trying not to die, and then you have to find a new Banshee because yours is about to fucking explode, and it's abysmal every
Mm.
single goddamn time. But again, but then like you get past that, and it's like, oh, but then the Scarab fucking blows up the door. All cool, awesome set piece. Well, then you have to do a kind of sort of annoying fight with a bunch of brutes. But hey, you got a boss fight with Tartarus. Finally, the guy who betrayed you.
Mm.
Even before that, it's like you gotta do a slow vehicle in the beginning. It's like do a slow vehicle fight up to where the prisoners are being held.
Yep.
But hey, then you get to fight with hunters for the first time ever,
Which is cool.
which was cool. But then it leads into more like so it was
Yep.
just a set piece and a set piece to the set piece.
Mhm.
Like sandwiching mundane like things that we've done this before,
Yeah.
like kind of stuff. So I agree with you. Which is sad because it's one of my favorite Arbiter levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that the
But
set pieces are good. It's just the rest of it's just for me.
no, I completely feel you.
Now, I'm sure that most of you know what I'm about to ask about Halo 2, and well, ask is a strong word, mainly just going to bluntly state, can we talk about how good the Halo theme is in Halo 2? Because the Halo theme in Halo 2 is so good.
Yep.
Fucking Steve Vai.
It's so good.
Iconic on a whole other level.
I will. I always await the day where I fucking start Halo 2 in Halo November because I will always play that song.
Hmm.
I await. I sit there every morning. I wake up and I have my cup of coffee and I look at the calendar and I'm like,
Is it time to be the Yomir theme?
It's so
and then
good
once
though.
it's done, then once it's done, I do "Blow Me Away" by Breaking Benjamin.
Which I found that to be an interesting inclusion, that they used like not just game
Yeah.
music, you know? They used like
That-
proper music.
Well,
Quote unquote.
yeah, like they used artist music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They brought in art, like Breaking Bad. Incubus was also a part of it
Mhm.
as well. There's some other band that they got to play for it as well. I love "Follow" by Incubus.
Hmm.
Follow, yeah. During the Banshee flight,
Mhm.
Mhm.
which made it sad during the for the anniversary. All that music was cut out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Probably because they just couldn't get the artists into the studio to re-record or something like that. Because I mean, God knows those bands have blown up since
Oh yeah. Oh
that
yeah.
game fucking released. But I know for a fact that Benjamin, God, is it Buckley? Is that his last name? The lead singer of Breaking Benjamin. He still has his Halo 2 controller.
Oh,
That,
wow.
that's awesome.
Yeah, he still has. He will only play Halo with that controller if he can.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's really
like,
cool.
it's part of his neuroticisms that he's got going on, though.
Controversial opinion. The Halo 2 Mjolnir theme is not my favorite Halo song though. My
Well, what is
favorite
it?
Halo song comes from Halo 3 and it is Never Forget.
Mm.
Bum, ba-bum, bum, bum.
It's
Is
you
that
can
the
hear
one?
it on the menu theme with the strings, the do
Oh,
do
yeah,
do
that one.
do. Because that was that song I have played in a band. I've played as part of
Really?
as an orchestra band. I we as part of my high school orchestra we had quite a good orchestra, and I convinced my my music teacher. I was like, look, don't look at where it's from, just listen to the song. And we did a short arrangement of Never Forget, and it has that special place for me as like I managed to convince my school to play a Halo 3 song.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I think Halo had such a huge driving force in making video game composers a more seriously taken
Yeah.
profession.
Agree. Yeah.
Like you watch a YouTube video and some guy's like some idiot asshole, whoever's in the video, is like, oh, we're gonna let's sing a monk song, or we're in monk clothes, and they go, oh,
Yeah.
I don't think
Like
your
the-
mic liked that at all.
Yeah, your mic cut that out real good, but you know what's great about the fact that cut out? You got 2 notes in, and everyone in this chat would be able to recognize that song.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even need the rest of the notes because people would know it.
It's
That's
so
how iconic it
recognizable.
is.
Yeah.
and it's just, and that's part of the reason why I fucking fell in love with the series is the music was so beautiful.
Same.
Marty O'Donnell and Mike Salvatore, they were such a dynamic duo. Funnily enough, got their big break writing the Flintstones vitamin commercial theme. But you didn't know that.
I did not.
Didn't know that. They did. That was their first big break. And then right after that was Halo.
Wow.
The real magnum opus of the Flintstones vitamin commercial.
But no, seriously, like I just those games made me love music even more because I've always loved music growing up. And then when a game had a beautiful soundtrack, Mass Effect also, the fucking Suicide Mission theme in Mass Effect 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, it's phenomenal. The speech in the game as it builds. Oh, oh, it's magical. Oh, see, I got cold chills just thinking about it.
I could do an entire fucking podcast in itself, telling like just the going into like soundtracks that had games that had amazing soundtracks.
Oh, same.
Or iconic soundtracks. But yeah, so what the fuck were we talking about?
We were talking about Halo's music, which I think we covered well enough. So I think it's at this point I have to ask, and pay attention very closely to the words, Homic. Would we consider Halo 2 to be essential, recommended, optional, or no?
This is hard. This one I don't think I can do unanimously.
Yeah, I don't either. We'll start with you, Ben.
I am going to answer essential. I think that Halo 2 is essential, and I think a big reason that it's essential is a big part of, especially the original trilogy, is Master Chief and Cortana and the Arbiter story. And you do not get the Arbiter story unless you play Halo 2. That's just a fact. You do not get the Arbiter story unless you play Halo 2. And I think the Arbiter is such an important part of the Halo series that without playing Halo 2, you would lose so much. You would lose so much by not playing Halo 2.
That's an interesting point, though, because we talked about earlier how games should be a game, even if it's a sequel, it should be able to stand on its own.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, if I were to say, like, if I wouldn't, but if I were to say, haha, no, like, okay, I would never. But if I were to say that, and people were like, okay, so fuck Halo 2, and then they would just go to Halo 3, and then they'd be like, well, who's this character then? Like, because it immediately starts off with Johnson being like, it is with us.
Yeah. Big that fantastically tense moment where Chief lands, is booted up, and is like fucking gun right in Arbiter's face.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Uh, hmm,
I'll say
I
it
don't
this way.
know.
For me, I feel like if you include plot stuff, it's definitely essential. But without the plot ties to future games, I would only give it recommended.
Hmm.
But that's just me. Because I prefer 1 and 3 over 2 by a large margin. I don't hate 2. It's just of the original trilogy, it's my least favorite.
If I'm going to go on gameplay, like because so many gameplay mechanics were introduced that have just been a tried and true, like have been such a tried and true like staple throughout the series. I mean, granted, you could get well. I'm not sure, man. I'm really not sure. It was so easy with Halo 1 for me, whereas this one, it's
Yeah.
What are you
I'm
leaning
going
between?
to. I mean, it's in between recommended and essential. Like, I would say if you absolutely had to miss it, you could miss it, but it's a hard miss for me. So it's extremely, 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 extremely recommended from me.
So yeah, I
Fair.
think the reason that I think it tips to essential for me personally is because I looked at it of, well, how much would you lose versus how much would it not matter if you jumped straight to Halo 3 from 2?
Yeah.
And I think
Fair.
that
Fair.
because you would lose so much from Halo 2, not like you say, not just necessarily in story, but the gameplay jump from 1 to 3, the context of the story, just that gap. I feel like Halo 2, not to diminish its importance, but it fills that gap perfectly in
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
1 and 3, where it's that stepping stone that makes it essential for the series.
That's fair.
I think we need to define also, though, moving forward from now on with these rankings. Because that is a big thing. Like your drive for essential is from a story standpoint, which I
Yeah.
will 100% agree with you on. So is that what we're defining moving forward?
So
as
here's
far
the
as
thing.
rankings?
It matters on the game because, like, for example, with ODST, story-wise,
Yeah.
it's not super important, you know?
Mhm.
Compared to like the whole series. And if you were to talk about 5 and the story in
Yeah.
5, so it just so happens that the first 2 are really important to building the series because the series didn't have much at that point. So I think once we get into later stuff, it'll be like, is
I
the
also
story
think-
really important?
I also feel like what will be counted as essential will depend on the context of each game series as well.
Yeah.
For instance, with Halo, the story is such a massive part of what Halo is, that it becomes really important. Whereas if you were to talk about a totally different series,
Super Mario 64.
yeah, exactly.
Wow, guys.
Like if you're talking about Mario games, story's not really going to be an element of what you consider an essential game in the series because it's not about the story with the Mario game. Whereas with Halo, such a huge driving motivation to play the series in general is the fantastic story.
Yep.
So that's gonna make it really hard for me moving forward because I fucking love the story of the Halo for the most part of the Halo.
I'm gonna be
series.
honest with you, Homic. I fully expect you to give essential to most things that aren't 4 and 5.
Yeah. If we're talking from if we're talking from a story standpoint, it's really hard for me to not say essential for almost like everything, especially in the first 3 games.
Yeah.
Because
Which is my logic. I feel like spoiler alert, the original trilogy for me will always be fully essential.
Yep.
The original 3 games will always be essential. From there, things get a bit more grey.
Yeah.
From that point, but the original 3 are, well, it's the original Halo trilogy. It defined a gaming decade and then some.
Yeah. And speaking of it being a trilogy, Halo 3 segue.
yes, I will change mine to essential.
Okay, that's fair.
for Halo.
That's fair. And I understand. Believe me, I get it because there wasn't much optional stuff at that point. You kind of needed everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with Halo 3, as I mentioned,
Essential. Moving on.
With Halo 3, it was the one I put the most time into as far as multiplayer stuff goes. And the differences between Halo 2 and Halo 3's multiplayer, there's some stuff, sure, but like, I think that the biggest thing to talk about with that is Forge and the ability to make your own shit. And I think that's what made Halo 3 so great. I remember spending loads of time playing on custom maps. Even some of them were like built like floating racetracks that you would drive mongooses on and stuff like that wasn't even combat related, that people just made, and it was incredible.
The also being able to freaking that was the first game where you could record your game footage.
Yeah.
So this was going to be my point about Halo 3 was Forge, true, fantastic addition. But the big thing for me that I think made Halo 3 the juggernaut that it was the community.
Yes.
Because the community around Halo 3 was unlike anything, especially like for me personally, that I had ever seen in the gaming world at all before. It was something totally different.
Can we talk also about I forget what the name of it was exactly, but can we talk about the holy shit balls to the wall fucking ad campaign for Halo 3? That was some of the hypest shit.
Yeah.
from the Super Bowl trailer, where like, you think we'll ever meet them? And then boom, fucking to the fucking documentary footage of to having replicas, the fucking huge diorama that they made.
Yep.
People made that. That was the thing people made. Like, it was ridiculous. It was the hypest fucking thing. That was the first midnight release I ever went to was Halo 3. And I had to.
I think same, actually. I met a friend, and we it was somebody that worked at a place that my grandpa worked when I was younger, and that's how I ended up meeting him, and he got me into playing online. At the time, it was Call of Duty Modern Warfare, but him and I ended up meeting up at the midnight release for Halo, and I just it's one of those things of like, that's where we finally really became friends, and we're still friends to this day, this many years later. And I just feel like it's one of those things that it's a testament to how games can bring people together more than would normally be possible without games. It's just one of those things that you can connect with someone very easily and share that experience and play online and waste your life playing video games on the internet with people.
I think the level of impact that Halo 3's community, not even just like the multiplayer, just the Halo 3 community had on a lot of corners of the internet is, it cannot be understated. Hell, look at Rooster Teeth.
Yeah.
Rooster Teeth wouldn't be what it was today without Halo.
Yeah.
And the Halo 3, the file share system, the things that everything, the Forge mode, the multiplayer rankings, the fantastic story, that everything that Halo 3 was completely shaped the kind of video game online community at that time. And it completely changed the way that I looked at video games in general. It's I would not be sitting here with a mic in front of me talking to you two from other side of the fucking globe had it not been for the snowball that Halo 3 started.
Yeah. And I'm going to stop you for just a second to say hello, Donna, and thank you for the raid. And I'm very curious as to what excited poop means. I'm going to watch chat very carefully so I can understand very confusing things.
I know what it means.
Uh-oh.
It's what I have to do in about a half hour.
All this talk about Halo is making my bowels. It's how I get going in the morning.
But welcome in, everyone. We're actually trying something new. We started a podcast, and we're going to have different guests on every week. It's going to be like a weekly thing, and all that good stuff. Going to talk about different games, series of games, that kind of stuff each week to kind of, just take a little deep dive, enjoy what we take a closer look at all the things that we enjoy and that kind of good stuff. So, Homic, you were about to say something.
Fuck. Just the huge impact. Like, what I was going to say was, in regards to Halo in general, I met a good group of friends, and I'm still friends with a lot of them today. For LAN parties, starting with Halo 1, and then we continued on. We did LAN parties for Halo 1, 2, and 3, and until I left for college. Where when I was in college, I still hosted LAN parties with Halo Reach, and
That's pretty great.
Like getting together, like hooking up multiple TVs to a router and fucking like just consuming pizza, soda, and screaming at each other from like the other rooms.
My favorite image that like helps encapsulate that is that kind of famous viral image that went around of like the LAN party where it's like the island of computers and the dude fucking duct taped to the ceiling with the with like the monitor on the roof.
Or just there's a monitor looking straight up so he could see.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Like, just to tie a bow off on the generalization of Halo, like from a community standpoint, Halo has always had such a very passionate and it's like just passionate community, like and a driving force creatively. I feel they've been starved in recent years, comparatively to how it was in the past. But so with Halo 3, I feel like Halo 3 was definitely the is it zenith is the right word? Is that a good word for that? Was like just the penultimate like moment where like the hype had been building since 2001 over this series.
Yeah.
It's 2007. The fucking ad campaign is exploding this to like exponential levels. Like people who have never heard of the game are like, "What the fuck is this shit they're doing?" They're doing like movie trailers for a video game. I'm turning into plankton for some reason. and it was just mind blowing. Like my dad doesn't play fucking video games. He saw the Super Bowl trailer for Halo 3, and he was like, that looks like it's gonna be a really cool movie. And I'm like, it's not a movie, Dave. It's a game.
It's a game.
It's a game, you dumbass.
But it gave you something to it was such like what's the word I'm looking for? There was such a solidarity with the Halo community. Like and just the gaming community. Like people, Halo 3 was the point where people were like, it's Halo, it's fucking good. Like and unfortunately nowadays it's a goddamn meme.
Yeah.
I still love it, but it's definitely fallen from its lofty moments from 2007.
Yeah. Now, speaking, I mean, we can't talk about Halo 3 without talking about the campaign, of course. When I got Halo 3, I got it specifically for the campaign. I didn't really give a shit about the multiplayer, but you know. So Halo 3, there's a lot of stuff to talk about in the campaign. The fact that you're with Arbiter and the co-op plays off of that really well, I feel.
4-player co-op, 4-player co-op online too.
Yeah.
And that was that in and of itself was amazing.
Yep.
Which, you know, just that's even more connectivity with people, which is great. But like we all know the plot of Halo 3 pretty well, and I would say that like the design of the levels, like if I were to go back and look at Halo 3 now and be like, ooh, do I want to play this particular level? There are definitely some levels that I don't really want to bother with, like Floodgate and the Ark. Not really a fan of those, especially the Ark, because that level can just fuck off. but
I've been getting there. All the playthroughs of Halo 3 recently, the arc has always been fucking me.
I hate Ark. It
Yeah.
kills me, man. Ark is just but I feel like kind of like Halo 2 had a lot of set pieces. I feel like Halo 3 amped that up. An example for that for me is in I'm trying to think of the name of the level. The Covenant, where you have to deactivate the shield barriers.
Yeah, it's called the Covenant.
Yeah, the Covenant.
Yeah.
So near the end, before you go into the Ark control room area, you fight 2 scarabs.
Yep.
2 on a relatively new vehicle. You would have used it up to this point once, but Hornets, I believe
Or
they're
you
called.
Or you could go in however you wanted to. They gave you a tank, they gave you warthogs, they gave you
Yeah.
mongoose with rocket dudes.
Yep.
You could approach that fight in whatever feasible way.
Yeah.
I love personally, I love getting dropped off by the Marines on top of the scarabs. And in the rare, I have got it in the rare chance where they've dropped me off, I've destroyed the scarab, it was exploding, and then they swung by to pick me up.
That's
That has
amazing.
actually happened to me. I died immediately after from the other scarab shooting at me. But it was awesome all the same. I was just like, oh my god, this is amazing. Because I'm just like, quick, pick up the chief. And I was like, woo, grabbed it and like, yeah, zap.
But it's funny because that set piece, it's a set piece, but you can approach it in so many different ways, and I feel like that choice makes it stand out so much more.
Absolutely.
And there was other things in the game that were really memorable. The level where you're the nest, I can't remember what it's called. Crow's Nest. That's the one. Where with the whole bombs and everything, you're like, yeah, we're just setting up this bomb, and then you get halfway through the level, and then you go back, and they've taken over the control room. It's memorable because this was yours a minute ago, and now it's not. And it's just one of those things that kind of like burns with you a little bit. A lot of the levels are great.
As Halo 1.
Yeah.
Except in a micro level.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good comparison, actually. Kind of like going back and everything's torn up, war torn, so to speak.
And same with High Charity at the end of the game too. Like you ran through High Charity when it was still Covenant owned, and now you're running through it and into some areas that there's not a lot of areas that are recognizable, but there are a few. One of which is when the room where Cortana is the room of the hierarchs in Halo 2.
Right.
And so I remember I ran into that room. I'm like, oh shit, I know this place because this is where that one scene in Halo 2 happened. This is also that one area you run through on the level Gravemind in Halo 2. And to see it so like infested and like this ooey gooey compared to how it used to be is really it's such a good, like, again, we talked about bookends. Halo 3 just did such an amazing job at just tying off a nice bow on the series story.
Agree. And one of the things that I have to say that I really like about Halo 3 is the Arbiter and just his quest for vengeance, and it not blue balling you.
Yep.
That is one of my favorite scenes in the trilogy, is when he finally gets his vengeance on a prophet.
That's my revenge, not a plague.
And the same idea
one
there.
villain for another.
And then, of course, and that was actually one of my, like, it blew my mind when you first get, like, in that part and you run through and the flood helps you. That was nuts.
Yep. It was the same feeling that I got from like playing as the Arbiter in Halo 2. That feeling of like, oh, this is not what I expected to happen. Like, granted, it's over very quickly. But and then having a horde of zombies running by you, killing everything in front of you.
And then they stab you in the back.
But it's a very empowering moment while it's happening.
These
things that have been giving you fucking grief the entire game, all of a sudden they are temporarily your, like, they're your, like, just fodder. Well, you're cleaning up their mess. They're going in, they're eating everything, and you're just kind of like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Alright. We got a prophet to deal with.
Mm. But it was a very iconic moment.
Yeah.
For damn sure. Uh, Halo 3 was just super like. I talked about a lot of set pieces in Halo 2.
Mhm.
Halo 3 had interactable set pieces.
Yeah.
Like Halo 2 had a lot of like cutscene set pieces, whereas Halo 3 had a lot of like you're a part of this. Again, the flood.
Yeah.
That flood. Spoilers, by the way. Losers. You haven't played Halo 3 yet?
What are you doing with your lives?
What a nerd.
Nerd.
But yeah, like the scarab fights. The friggin' the flood, the warthog run. It did
Yes.
such a good
Oh.
job of taking it back to like that where you are the set piece that Halo 1 kind of had you. I mean, granted, there's still some things, but not a lot.
Mm.
You still feel like I'm the guy who destroyed this AA gun.
Yeah.
Like I either ran up there or was a pussy and sniped it from afar. Like, I'm the guy I'm the one who did that. I dropped down that energy shield. I fought my way up through this tower and deactivated this shit. Whereas in Halo 2, they were like, "Hey, Johnson's gonna fire this laser beam," or I don't know. They had you cut the cable of the one thing in Halo 2. You cut that cable, but Halo 3 definitely wins out in terms of interactable. Like, I'm a part of this. moments.
Yeah, that interactivity. Yeah, absolutely agree.
Perfect example of that. 343 Guilty Spark.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's satisfying.
Mm.
I wish there's a little more to that fight, to be honest.
Agree.
But it was
Yeah.
satisfying just bug zapping him to death.
Yeah.
Damn shit.
And see, that's the thing, though. Like, Johnson, who you at the time would assume that Johnson died, because everyone died in Halo 1 except for you and Cortana. So you would just assume he's dead, and then you get to Halo 2, and boom, he's back. And he helps you beat the game. You couldn't do it without him. And then he's back in 3, and he's still just as much of a badass. But then, at the end of the journey,
Like shooting your friend out of a warthog.
uh,
The ultimate betrayal.
I deserve that. That's fair.
Yep.
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 Yeah,
I
you do.
deserve that. But like, I still to this day, like every time he gets lasered, I'm just like, ugh. But I get why they did it, but like, still, like Johnson's one of my favorites.
It's mandatory to salute in my stream whenever that scene pops up.
Damn right.
If you don't, chat, if you don't, Halo-vember, when Johnson dies, if you don't salute, you are banned.
Yeah.
Don't let me see you in chat not saluting Johnson.
And
You
quite
will be
right.
banned.
No, Molasses, this is Homyk's channel, so it would be necessary.
Oh,
Because it has more syllables. Oh,
I
so good.
deserve that.
Okay. That's good. That's good. That's gonna be a meme for a couple days, I'm sure. So since we're on the topic of the last level, I feel like we should talk about the Warthog run and how
not only the Warthog run, but the fact that you return to the control room from the first game.
yeah.
Like you climb the pyramid, which, funnily enough, I never did in the first game.
You banshee glitch up there?
I always got the banshee.
Yeah.
And flew up. It's not a glitch if you can do it.
It's a strategy.
It's a speedrun tactic, motherfucker. And that's the way my friend did it, and that's the way I thought you had to do it. I never knew. I don't think I even know what's on the other side of that bridge. I don't think I know what enemies are there, because that is always the end of the level for me.
Yeah.
Is that moment. And to come up on that and see it right there, you're just filled with such a smack of nostalgia.
Yep.
And then immediately are bombarded by flood pods.
Yep.
And it's just like, well, can't dwell in nostalgia. Gotta fucking fight my way up this thing that I never did before in my entire life.
I felt like that was a really good way to do it too, Like it wasn't
Absolutely.
it wasn't in your face. You didn't have the arbiter going, "Wow, this place certainly looks familiar," or whatever. It left it to you to feel that for yourself rather than cramming it down your throat, which I feel like a lot of games do nowadays, but but yeah, that
absolutely.
and then the Warthog run at the end, because that's another parallel to Halo 1. But I will say this, I feel it's so hard for me to decide between Halo 1 and Halo
Which
3's
one?
Warthog runs, which one I prefer. Yeah. And it's really hard for me. I will say that I believe that Halo 3's music during the Warthog run is the superior, and it's for a lot of reasons, but the big one for me, and this is not going to surprise anyone, is that it's dynamic, and that the further you go along, the more the track changes as you go, the music track, and any dynamic music like that just makes me rock hard all the time.
Yep, I feel you. I completely feel you. That happens to an extent with Halo 1. They have a different song in the beginning, and then it switches to the triumphant Halo theme after Faux Hammer dies.
Right.
Now what I will say, in terms of mechanically, I prefer Halo 1's Warthog run because I fucking hate Sentinels.
Yeah. And they flip you.
They do. I don't fucking. It's a little laser beam. How does it have the mask to turn your fucking vehicle in midair? Doesn't make any goddamn sense. That's so fishy. Fucking yes. What the fuck am I gonna do? Haven't died at all in this fucking game. Legendary difficulty. Iron Skull. Haven't died at all. Some Sentinel ass blast me. Fall off the edge. Restart the mission. Go fuck yourself. That has never happened to me, thankfully. I've never, knock on wood, I've never had to do solo Iron Skull on Halo 3.
Ooh.
I hope to God I never do.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to. Nope.
The very quick side tangent. If you ever want to feel inadequate about your skills at Halo, speedrunner. He doesn't play, and he isn't online anymore. But there was a speedrunner who again, hero to me, Naked Eli, who has done not only several speedruns on Lasso, but has done Halo 2 and Halo 3 Lasso 0 shot without firing a single bullet. Swords allowed, hammers allowed, melee allowed, not a single bullet fired, and he is
Grenades
completed
either?
the entire game.
No grenades either?
I don't remember. I'd need to watch again, but I don't remember if grenades were allowed. But not a
That's
single
nuts.
bullet fired throughout the entire legendary All Skills On campaign.
I mean, to be fair, it's obnoxious as shit once the skulls all get turned out. You basically can only roll with a melee weapon. Because you can't fucking see your goddamn reticle or even your own hand. Oh god, I remember I played with a blind skull on. I beat Halo. I told you that I beat this recent charity I had for Halo 3.
Yeah.
I played with a blind skull. It was awful. I don't know how I managed to fight. I don't know how I got headshots, but I did. And I didn't even cheat and put like a little Oreo or whatever, Cheerio in the center of the screen.
Oreo? You had an Oreo on your screen. That'd be even more impressive.
It would help more than having nothing, to be honest.
Well, that's true.
But yeah, so to do that as a speedrun is fucking impressive.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Because I know how it feels to even have half of those skulls turned on.
Yeah.
And it is a nightmare.
It's a very hard deliberation between the Warthog runs. I think for me, I agree mechanically Halo 1's Warthog run is better, but thematically there's just something unparalleled about Halo 3's Warthog run.
That's what I was gonna get to. Is I would say on the whole, Halo 3 is my favorite Warthog run. Sentinels be damned. Like it doesn't happen if it happened all the time, that'd be one thing. But the fact that they don't always ruin it for me, like like it. I mean, I used to know the Halo 1 Warthog run. I could probably almost do that one blindfolded back in the day, but it's been so long since I've and that was back when I always constantly would be like, I'm going to play the first 2 missions of Halo, and I'm gonna skip to the more because I like the more. And
Good impression of me.
Yeah, we haven't heard of that.
and but yeah, so I would say on the whole, Halo 3 definitely has, especially thematically and from a narrative standpoint, it's just stronger.
Yeah,
Mhm.
agree.
The message behind it, what is happening during it,
Yeah.
is stronger than
Yeah.
Halo 1 for sure.
So with all of that said, I have to ask: essential, recommended, optional, or no?
Essential. I have to pee.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah, I
Easy
agree.
essential.
I agree. It's
Um,
essential 100% for a
It's a
lot of
culmination
reasons.
of years of dedication to the series,
Yeah.
the building of a community,
Yep.
the hyping of a story, a narrative woven into 2 fantastic games prior. It is one of, and I will stand by that, it's one of the most, just in general important moments in video game history.
Yeah.
I think it's even before the decade was out, people were saying Halo 3 game of the decade. It gave not only the online community, not only the Halo community, not only the gaming, it gave everyone so much, and it changed the way that so many people thought, both gamers and non-gamers thought about what games could be and what you could do with games.
Yeah.
That it's it's fucking Halo, man. It just makes, I think it, for me, it makes it even all the more sad to look at where we're at now.
Yeah.
I think there we go. Yeah, I was just saying that I think the massive impact that Halo 3 had, I think it just makes it a little bit more sad. I feel like it twists the knife a little bit more to see where we've gotten to now
Yeah.
with the Halo
And
series.
speaking of which,
Here we go. This is what chat's been waiting for the whole
yeah.
night. This
Oh
is-
yeah. So
We've been
Halo
nerding out this whole
4.
time.
I'm not even gonna
Halo-
ask a question. I'm just gonna say Halo 4. Go for it.
Are we skipping? Are we skipping Reach and ODST?
So,
Sorry,
we'll
however you have it. I'm just curious.
we'll come back to that. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All right, gotcha.
I have a reason. You'll see.
All right, sounds good. Halo 4 is an interesting beast for me
Agreed.
because
Yeah.
as a fan, essential required necessary inclusion. Because it is where, number one, it's where 343 took the reins.
Yeah.
It's also where they, as the South say, bless their hearts for trying, tried their best to start to. I do. I think they had a passion to bring in the extended Halo lore together, but they needed more than one game to do that.
Yeah.
Because they immediately tried to just kind of put them together, and it just didn't. That's when the problems started happening narratively. I loved Chief and Cortana's dynamic in this game.
Yes.
Agreed.
It was my favorite. I love this game for that reason. I hate the fucking Forerunner enemies.
Same.
The Prometheans
Same.
are a stain.
They are the worst designed enemies in any FPS I have ever played. And that is worse than Halo 2 Flood.
Yeah.
Because in Halo 4, the knights are giant bullet sponges.
Yep.
And on higher difficulties, with skulls turned on, it is near impossible to fucking kill them. It is. I have never attempted lasso in Halo 4 or 5 for that matter, because it is not fun. It is not fun. And like at first they were cool, but at the it was just like, oh, this is new enemy, cool. But the honeymoon ended very quickly.
Yeah.
I think the thing with Halo 4 for me being such a is there was elements of it that were great, and there were elements of it that were terrible. I do have a level of sympathy for 343 because they had such massive shoes to fill, and they had such a massive weight on their heads. They were bringing back Chief from the end of Halo 3,
Yeah.
and they had the expectations of the world looking at them to see what they would do. And I feel like there was things they got right, and there was things that I cannot blame them for getting wrong. But the way that they butchered the integration of that extra the extended universe stuff is just it's such a huge hurdle to get over.
And again, a lot of it is the limitation of the medium. Like,
Yeah.
it is very the lore that they have is for an RPG at this
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
It is so hard to cram that much fucking story and characters into a maybe 8-10 hour campaign.
Yeah.
It is near impossible. You are asking the impossible. Like, and it's Halo's had such a long time to build up its story too. Because there were so many books released even before Halo 4 came out.
Yeah.
And then the Primordium, I forget what they're called, Primordium books they came out in anticipation of Halo 4.
And then
I
there's
didn't
the
know that
other
it came
spin-off
out.
games as well. There's stuff like Halo Wars, that play into stuff. There was ODST and Reach, obviously.
Spartan
There
Assault.
was Spartan Assault as well. I was Spartan Assault before 4.
All I remember is it was in the trash can where it belonged.
It was a serviceable game, but it was a top-down shooter.
Yeah, it was something.
Very not
Like,
my style.
I feel like as well the big thing for me was for a lot of Halo players, you've got 1, 2, 3, and then you've got ODST and Reach, and then you've got 4. And for a lot of Halo players, 4 was the rejoining point. I know that there will be players out there who didn't play ODST or Reach, or maybe played ODST, or maybe played Reach, but this was the return to, for a lot of people, the main Halo story.
Yeah.
Of Master Chief. And for a lot of those people who didn't know anything about the extended universe, this was not only a massive kind of culture shock and a change of pace for the story, but it for as somebody who went into this having played Reach and ODST but not knowing anything about the extended universe, I went into Halo 4 and felt like, to say that they ruined the Forerunner isn't the right way to put it, but I felt like they were misrepresented by the way that they were added, because you get none of the journey. You know nothing about the Direct's the perfect example of that. You know nothing about his motivations, about his backstory, about his relationship with anybody. He arrives in a big floating orb and he fucking Jedi mind tricks the fuck out of some people, and he's like, "Go kill the bad guy."
He pops out of a Kinder egg and is like, "Happy Easter, bitch!"
It's like the game gives you no reason to give a flying fuck about any of this, and it's like,
No. And I didn't. All I knew is that he had cool force powers.
yeah. And here's the thing. Having since then looked into, and now that I don't know everything, mind you, and I don't know it in detail, but what I do know about the Dirac story and what I actually do know about the extended universe, I enjoy and I love. But I didn't have any of that going into Halo 4. And a lot of people didn't have any of that going into Halo 4.
Nope.
And it made for the mess of like, I'm so glad that this game series is back. I'm so glad we're getting more. And the development of Chief and Cortana's relationship was fantastic, I think, in that game. And then the rest, everything around it just felt, ugh.
Yeah, agree.
I thought Halo 4 was setting up to some really interesting story bits.
Mm.
Spoiler alert. When Cortana dies at the end of the game, I thought that was an extremely powerful moment in the game.
Yep.
Because that sets a driving force moving forward for the story to take an interesting new direction.
Agree.
Which they almost did in Halo 5. They almost made Chief the bad guy for one of their games, which would have been really cool to hunt to like imagine fighting Chief in Blue Team as a boss fight.
Oh.
Imagine how cool and hard that would have been.
Oh yeah.
Like instead of fighting the fucking Warden Eternal 5 fucking times,
God.
imagine actually getting to fight Blue Team. And maybe the Warden Eternal. But as
the death of Cortana was so powerful, and I felt was such. I feel like they ended that so well, only for them to come back and shit all over it. And it's like, oh yeah, but we'll get to that. That's Halo 5. The rage is slowly building, but we'll get there.
I'm with you, brother. Stay strong. Stay strong.
But I think an interesting thing for Halo 4 for me was it doesn't, the combat mechanically is fine. I think it's good, but like another thing about the Forerunner enemies, the Promethean enemies, is they, at least to me, they have no personality. They are quite literally robots. They're like, there is no. And I think one thing that the story does, there's like that moment in the story where there's the Prometheans that are being controlled by the Didact, and then there's like the other Prometheans as well that aren't being controlled by the Didact. And I feel like, while I understand that from a story standpoint, I feel like from a gameplay, it just further drove home the lack of individuality and the lack of personality that they had.
Yep.
It was just like, oh, so these are just the chess pieces that they're moving around. These are the things that you'll be shooting at for the next 6 to 12 hours. You know, like they compare that to the Covenant in Halo 1, even Halo 1.
Yeah.
The Covenant at any point, even the Flood, is like, there's so much more and there's so much more depth to what you're fighting in all the other Halo games that the Prometheans just fell completely flat.
The first Halo game set a brilliant example of knowing your enemy's weakness. The Covenant were weak against a combination of their own weapons and human weapons. The Flood were, and again, it makes sense via the lore they were creating, were primarily weak against human weapons. Which, if you understand the lore, you know why.
Yeah.
The Sentinels, the Forerunners, were weak against Covenant weapons because that's where the Covenant got their technology from.
Right.
So it was what they were weak against. So no matter the situation, if you knew what tools do you have at your disposal to handle the situation, or you knew what to look for, you could handle the situation. And that lasted for the 3 games for the most part. Halo 2, the Flood were a little bit, it was weird. You could down a Flood with a carbine. It was really weird. But in Halo 2, I mean, in Halo 4 with the Prometheans, that was the first instance where the enemy didn't have a fucking weakness, and it was abysmal. They were not fun to fight.
Yeah, there wasn't a strategy.
There wasn't a strategy. Like, I sighed with relief every time I would get to, like, I still do. Every time I get to a section I know is just Covenant, I'll be like, oh, thank God. Variety in my diet for combat.
Yeah.
Whereas when I get to the fucking Prometheans, it's like, I gotta just spray these guys with bullets and hope they die eventually.
Yep.
And that continued. Stop.
Hey,
You there! Halo 5, I see you!
We're watching from the corner and we're getting there.
Get there eventually.
Well, I mean, do you guys have anything else you want to add about Halo 4 before we destroy Halo 5?
question.
Sure.
Did you guys absolutely... This is, for some reason, a point of contention in the community, a point of division. Were you absolutely butthurt and flabbergasted when Sprint was made? I shouldn't have worded it like that. I apologize. I'm already influencing an opinion. Did you absolutely loathe the addition of Sprint into the game? The permanent addition of Sprint.
So initially, when it was revealed, I didn't like the idea, and I think it's still a very it's a very on the fence issue. I feel like, for me personally, and this is part of what I was talking about earlier with the kind of change in pace and the way that people play Halo. That was a big part of it with Halo 4, was the addition of the permanent sprint, because it was no longer an armor ability that you had to pick up and you had like this use of it. It was something that you could sprint. And while I don't think that inherently, in theory, it's a bad thing, and that changing the pace of how Halo played and changing making it faster and making it more fast-paced was a bad thing, I do think that for me it didn't work as well. I didn't enjoy it as much, but I understand how it could have been very well done. I don't think it was executed very well.
So for me, the sprint button, the concept of having a button to help you move faster for a guy that likes to get through games quickly is nice. But my issue with it is what it did to the design of the levels. The moment you give a character in a game a sprint button, your levels need to be bigger to compensate for the faster movement. And just making them bigger with nothing in them makes them boring to move through. Yes, and I feel like that is the biggest downside to me. I think that had they given a sprint button and implemented it more wisely, it would have been fine. But the way they did it is frustrating because they didn't make the levels good and based around that type of momentum.
Yep, I agree with that. I really do. I didn't mind it. It felt like a natural evolution to me. I'm like, we're playing as a super soldier. It makes sense for him to move fast.
Yeah, mechanically,
now, whereas in the old games, they made your base speed relatively quick.
Yeah.
So what they did is they dialed down your basic walk speed a little bit, and then they made the sprint very fast. Now, that also changed the design of the enemies and how they functioned as well.
Yep.
Elites, whereas elites were more like, kind of like this, and they kind of moved around like this, they suddenly became a lot more like
slender.
Yeah, like, well, and that's the thing, they weren't slender by any stand. And if anything, they were more like Neanderthal in design. Like they were more like, they were less. I forget what video I watched, but they put it in a very good point. Elites were in the Halo 1 to 3, they were very elegant.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas in Halo 4 to 5, they made them more bestial. Like in their design, they were no longer like, they no longer appeared agile or nimble because their legs were fucking tree trunks now. So like they made their tops very slim, but then they like they had like a weird cone shape to them. Like it was very weird. Whereas in Halo, the original Halos, they had this very unique. If you saw that silhouette, like put a silhouette of an elite from the original trilogy next to the silhouette of an elite from the newer games, you could tell immediately that that was an elite in the originals. But in this game, you're like some kind of mutated penguin or something like that. So I just find that very interesting. And I don't know why they changed it in that regard. Probably because they were so kind of like wide in the original games. They made them more just straight up and down in these games to make it harder for you to get around. Like, say if they went behind cover, you couldn't easily like quickly move to the side and then like start shooting them again. You'd have to actually like get a bead on them.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a game designer,
Yeah.
but it's I just thought that was very interesting that that's the direction they decided to go with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and QTEs.
Yeah.
Mm,
The fact that you kill the final boss of the game with a QTE
Yeah.
was
yeah.
embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I've
It
always
was
hated
indicative of a
QTEs.
time where that was a perversion.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
Ugh.
remember playing Shadow of Mordor, and you've been building an army, and
Yeah.
storm. You fight, use your army, you take all your commanders, and you fight all the other orcs. And then so you're fighting a mixture of like your enemies that you've made throughout the game. And then when you're done that, you're off to fight the freaking Black Hand of Sauron. You get up there, QTE,
Yeah.
and then the game ends.
And
And that was
it's
the same fucking way Halo 4 ended.
Yeah.
and it's bad.
Yeah.
But
I
it
don't like
was.
QTEs at all. I
think
never have.
Just very quickly to jump back to this big thing. I think that's the big thing for me. I think for why I don't think it's the sprint I had the problem with. I feel like the sprint was a natural addition. I feel like it's how they built the game from that I had the issue with.
Mm.
I feel like that's what I didn't enjoy as much. I feel like the
They
style.
They were throwing in a bunch of tropes from Call of Duty at the time, also.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
the QTEs were a Call of Duty thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Entirely.
Entirely.
And again, they made for cool scenes, but
Yeah.
at the same and to where like I feel in control of the scene, but only so much as you feel in control of like what's a good example? I don't know, like one of those Disney rides where you're sitting in the car and you're like, whoa, like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride or something like
Yeah.
that. That's the kind of interactivity you have in Halo 4 with those
It's like
QTE scenes.
that on-rail shooter feel.
Yeah, like
yeah.
Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, like that kind
Oh.
of thing.
Oh.
Mm.
Oh, there's a topic for later. So
Yeah, it's
so Halo 5, right?
Dad, do we have to?
Well, we'll keep it
I've been in
short.
such a good
okay?
mood tonight.
We'll keep it short. We'll definitely keep it short. In 100 words or less, why is Halo 5 the worst Halo game? We'll start
100
with you, Ben.
Right. I'll try and keep this as short as I can.
Okay, that's 10 words.
You know what? Here's three for you. Fuck you, Jacob. And yes, that is part of the 100. I don't care. Halo 5 is almost like a perfect case study on how not to continue a story. I feel like the new characters it introduces are weak and are poorly implemented. The old characters that it tries to bring back, it does poorly, and it misunderstands their characterization completely. It erases so much of the work that the previous game had done. It misunderstands completely what the player wants from the experience of the game, and it evolved itself to be something that the Halo series never was before and shouldn't have been before. And I think a very good example of that is what kind of Homek mentioned earlier with the idea of Halo being very good at show don't tell. Halo 5 does the exact opposite of that and is very, very much in the camp of fucking no. It doesn't show anything and it just tells you everything. It's
shit you didn't even want to know.
Yeah, shit that's not even relevant. And then it doesn't tell you anything that you need to know. And and the relationship between the characters is so weird and wrong, and I feel bad for the voice actors of that game because the voice actors must have had such a dog shit script to work with. I've one of the good examples I think of that is the relationship you're supposed to understand between Bucky and Sergeant Locke, whatever the fuck his name is, Locke. Their relationship makes no sense at all, and you get no context for their relationship throughout the game, even though they're supposed to have one. And there's times where they're in the middle of like conversations and they just say things that make no sense for no context. Like one of them in particular, there's a scene where in the game where they're talking about the fact that they're hunting Chief. They're going to be hunting the Master Chief. And Buck says something along the lines of, everyone's going to hate us because, this is the Master fucking Chief. And then Locke makes a comment about Buck makes a comment about doing it for the mission. And then Locke's like, oh, I've got my own reasons for hunting Chief kind of thing. They never expand on that. They never explain that comment. And it feels like they throw out these lines as if they're supposed to be these badass one-liners. Things like, if they came to hear me begging. And it's like they're trying to echo what lines that came before, but they have no substance. They have no meaning. And they don't get expanded upon at any point in the story. And it's so poorly written. And the only line, there's one line in that entire fucking game that I will give them. There's only one. And that is when Blue Team and Osiris Team face off, and Locke says, we're taking over from here. Cortana is our problem now. And Chief says, like hell she is, and fucking decks him. That's the only line in the entire game I'll give them that I think works really well in the scene. Everything and the rest of that scene's dog shit, by the way. The rest of that entire scene is complete dog shit. But the entire game's like that. The entire fucking game. That scene with Sergeant Locke and Master Chief should have completely obliterated Sergeant Locke in that scene. That not only would that have been a fantastic narrative device, and it should have been something that you build up to, but the fact that they hold that ground so long, only for him to just get locked in fucking place by that stupid fucking. I'm gonna have a heart bridge here.
Locke got locked in the armor lock.
I could feel my brow beginning to sweat.
That's what we call. I wouldn't call that irony. What would we call that? That'd be if his name was like Open.
So what about you, Homic?
Ben touched on a lot of stuff that I had issues with the game, so I'm just gonna not go with that. Halo 5 was the culmination again, where I talked about it in Halo 4, where they were starting to dive into the extended lore.
Mm-hmm.
Halo 5 was the culmination of desperately trying to bring it all together and failing so hard. From a narrative perspective, Halo 5 is a travesty. From character motivations to character dialogue writing, the pacing is so awful story-wise. The explanations for things that are happening are the coolest part of the game for me was going to Sang Helios.
Yeah.
Mainly because you don't fight the fucking Prometheans until the end of the third mission there. Or the end of the second mission there and the end of the third mission there. Like, they didn't improve the Prometheans at all between 4 and 5. They made them worse. The soldiers are not a fun enemy to fight. They made the knights a little more interesting in that you can break off their body armor, but when they're surrounded by fucking soldiers, it's just abysmal.
Yeah.
Their homing weapons are a goddamn nightmare. My biggest problem with Halo 5 from a gameplay standpoint is the Prometheans as an enemy. That's my biggest. I thought that the armor boosts were an interesting addition, or the thrusters, because that was my favorite armor ability in Halo 4 to use, was the thruster pack. And so being able to use that in combat was interesting. Funnily enough, I'm not sure if y'all knew this. Halo 5's creative lead was the director of Republic Commando, Star Wars Republic Commando.
Really?
I did not know that.
Which, if you played that game, you can see the similarities in how the squad mechanics work. You get knocked down, your AI companion can pick you up. Your AI companion gets knocked down, you can pick them back up. Unfortunately, when you're the problem with that mechanic is when you have such when your level design is so vertical and so many different paths to take, the AI gets confused and doesn't know where to fucking go. It works if you're playing with friends. It does not work when playing with AI because the AI does not know how to properly path in the game.
Right.
It does not. It does not know how to it does not know how to path. It does not know how to pick the safest spots to sit and revive you. It doesn't know how to pick cover. The ally AI was not intelligent in Halo 5 to any extent. It was horrible. What else bugged me? Going back to something I meant to mention, Halo 4, Promethean weapons were always boring to me.
Yeah. Agreed, 1000%.
All the Covenant weapons are so unique.
Yeah.
Even the less like the microwave beam, whatever the fuck that was called from Halo Reach. But they all have their own personality, their own function. The Promethean weapons, they're just they're just Michael Bay human weapons. To be honest.
Yeah.
Like you have the DMR, which is the light rifle.
Mm-hmm.
The way the scopes open up is very cool.
Yeah.
But from a design, they're just a hunk of metal with orange lights, and that's very boring to look at.
You want a light gray hunk with orange glow that shoot fucking BBs?
Yep.
Cool.
It feels like.
You know what a big thing is? They don't feel satisfying to use either. Like the human and Covenant weapons are so different as well. So like the human weapons are like crunchy, they're like real guns.
Yeah.
And then the energy weapons for the Covenant, they feel powerful. They feel, especially when you're ripping through some dude's shield with a repeater.
Praise the pink stink.
Yeah. And then you get the Promethean weapons, and it's like, take my pomegranate seeds, bitch. It's
which is why I'm glad to see briefly touching on Infinite, which is why I'm glad to see that the Banished have their own interesting weapons.
Yeah.
I saw the one weapon that they picked, some of the weapons they picked up for it, and I'm like, cool, that looks interesting, and it looks like it has a specific function. I'm down with this. But yeah, sorry, back to Halo 5. It's narratively, characters, gameplay mechanics not meshing well together. The cuts they made to get their stupid 60 frames per second. The cuts, the footage, like whenever I play that game, and I'm like, I see enemies from even I would say probably 10 feet away, going like I cry every time because I'm like, you guys cut these corners to make this industry standard of a 60 FPS shooter. And at the time, I mean, it's it's more of a standard now, but at the time I didn't give shit.
Yeah.
Like I'm so used to playing Halo in 35 FPS, I didn't care.
Yeah.
And from a visual sacrifice, I didn't like that at all. It's just there's the problem with discussing Halo 5 is there's so much negative to unpack with Halo 5.
Yeah.
It would need, as YouTube has shown, multiple half-hour long episodes of content to go through and discuss everything that was wrong with that game.
1000%.
From just the over bloated narrative is what drove me the most insane while playing the game. It was the only Halo game that when I finished it, I felt empty.
Yeah.
And which was such a weird feeling for me because I didn't want to feel that way.
Yeah.
I was in conflict with myself when I beat Halo 5 for the first time because I'm like, I feel like I should be happy, but I'm not.
I think that was a big thing as well, was like even Halo 4 at its worst still had fantastic moments and
Yeah.
still had moments that
When
were
you
amazing.
save the space station,
Yeah.
like when you first land there and you save all the scientists like single-handedly from all those Covenant borders and stuff, and then you hold off, you single-handedly defend the composer,
Mhm.
like had so many good moments. The fucking it's equivalent to the Warthog run, the fucking longsword flight. That was
Yeah.
so awesome. I
Yeah.
love that moment. And seeing all the ships fighting above you
Yeah.
during that is so bad. And seeing Earth is so it was so jaw-droppingly awesome at the time. And barring the final confrontation, the final moments with Cortana were very meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Halo 5 just felt like it took all of that and it was like, yeah, but we want to add all this other stuff in, and it confused everything.
Cortana should
Yeah.
not have come back.
Agree. And I love Cortana, but
I was fine with the idea of Cortana coming back, but the way they executed it was terrible.
Yeah.
They should have made it seem like it wasn't. They should have made it seem like Chief was actually insane.
Yes,
And then-
yes.
Yeah.
This is what I said. I don't understand that scene. When they arrive, Chief has that fucking vision, and everybody, not just Blue Team, not just everybody, just universally accepts, oh hey, Cortana's back. Why? Why would they ever just immediately consider, yeah, okay, that's right?
Because it's shitty.
Oh, it makes me mad. It makes me angry.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. Could you imagine how much better it would be if that was the conflict of the game? Was like and a huge moment in the game. A big
and then the reveal at the end is that she is alive, but she's evil.
yeah.
That would have been so much more interest. That would have been such a more like, oh no moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I-
like
and-
throughout the game, you wondering whether you are or are not crazy.
Yes.
And another huge moment. The selling point of this game, which I'm going to touch on the marketing for this game in a second, but
Don't get me fucking
we're gonna get there. But the big selling point of this game was AWOL Master Chief. That was like, holy shit. Holy shit. And
You guys remember when I said 100 words or less? It was good times.
fuck you, Jacob, we're taking over.
I'm gonna fix a
What's the
meatball
truth?
sub.
Gotta Fuck Fano!
The Chief going AWOL was the selling point of this narrative, and the moment that he goes AWOL, if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't know it had happened. Like it's such a non-moment. It's like some stupid, not even a good line of dialogue where he's just like, "No, okay, bye."
Negative infinity. I don't like it.
That's it. And it's like, that's the moment where the Master Chief goes against the entire fucking UNSC? Really? Oh,
Again, I attribute everything to my conspiracy theory that I mentioned earlier in this stream. The game was meant to be two different games,
yeah.
but Microsoft wanted a main title Halo for their Xbox One. And so they combined Locke's game and the beginnings of Chief's game, because Chief's game, who in their right mind, while making Halo 5, thinks it's a good idea to only have 3 fucking Master Chief missions in their Master Chief game?
Yeah.
You don't put 3, you don't you don't make the players of Doom Eternal do 3 missions of fucking Doom Guy, and the rest of the game is goddamn Samuel Hayden. You don't do that. That's not the choice to be made. Clearly, something was done on a corporate level to affect the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
And it had a drastic negative influence on the narrative outcome.
Mass Effect.
I feel like a big part of this as well, the marketing for this game. The marketing for Halo 5 Guardians matches up with nothing in the game. Like, there's entire set pieces and scenes from the marketing that just don't have any relevance or do not appear in any way, shape, or form in the game. The big cornerstone of the marketing was these two powerful Spartans hunting each other. This was it was the whole ad campaign where like you had the two different adverts, like one where Chief was like half broken on the ground and Locke was pointing the magnum at him, and the other one where Locke was broken on the ground and Chief was pointing the magnum at him. There was the huge fucking reveal trailer with like Chief in the fucking edgy ass fucking cloak.
Yeah, the nomadic cloak.
And then it blows back when the Guardian comes up in the middle of a fucking desert while he's holding what was Cortana. That had nothing to do with the game and had no relevance in the game whatsoever and wasn't even a set piece in the game. And the Guardians already looked completely different and had nothing to do with what they were implied to do in the trailer either. And it's like, how can you have such a profound disconnect between the everything you marketed and everything the game was? How can that happen?
Also, I'm not sure if you guys listened to it, but I listened to it, and it hyped me the fuck up for Halo 5, unfortunately, was the Hunt the Truth podcasts.
Yes.
Oh.
I'm not sure. So, Ben, from your yes, I take it you listened to it.
I don't think I've listened to all of it, but I have listened.
I listened to every single one. They primarily feature so Key and Michael Key.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah, but
I know who you're talking about, yeah.
From Key and Peele.
Yeah.
I think it was
Key
Michael
Key or whatever his name is.
Key Michael Key. That's what I think, something like that.
Yeah.
He was the main character. He played a journalist researching Master Chief going AWOL.
Mm-hmm.
And it had fucking nothing to do with anything
that
happened in actual Halo 5 story. They talked about the Guardians coming back, but it was like they wrote all this stuff before the game changed.
Yeah.
They had all of this stuff made already, like Halo 3 style,
Mm-hmm.
and to promote this game. But something happened. There wasn't a communication. No one went to the advert team and be like, "Hey, don't air this shit. The game has changed." Microsoft's just like, just air it, and it was a lie.
Yeah.
Hunt the Truth was a lie.
Yeah.
And it was so misleading and such a shame because it was so interesting. Like, I loved it. It was so, I loved listening to them. I listened to them every single week when they came out. And they were such fun listens, and they were really well acted and produced. They had a lot of big names. Fucking Mark Hamill was a character in one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a psychotic like cult leader, but
Of course he was.
yeah, it was good shit, but it just went nowhere. I apologize. I suddenly have to use the bathroom.
No,
really
go
bad.
for it. Go for
I'll
it.
be right back. I
You know,
apologize.
I actually really like Homyk's quote unquote conspiracy theory. I think that Halo 5 would have been a much better game had it been split into two games and not rushed out the door incomplete and shit.
So I entirely agree. I feel like if they had released Halo Guardians and that was Locke's story, then I mean, don't get me wrong, the story that as it ended up still being complete and utter dog shit anyway.
Yeah.
But even hypothetically, if they had split it and you had Locke's story and then you had Chief's story and both together gave a greater context, then it would have been better than what was made. I would still have a myriad of issues with the game, and I feel like even then, it doesn't really do enough to save it, but it's significantly better than what we would have got. Like that would have, in hypothetical, would have been a lot better than what we did in actuality get.
Right.
I think it's Halo 4 was like the pivotal moment of like, this was a very divisive game.
Yeah.
This game, there was 2 camps, and there was only one way to see which camp was right, and it was the next game.
Yep.
When the next Halo game arrived, that would be where we found out, oh, we shouldn't have left this in the hands of 343, or give them a chance. They know what they're doing. And to so spectacularly and thoroughly fuck it up.
Yeah.
To completely not only backtrack everything that you had built in the previous game, but to completely misunderstand your own writings, to take the writings of the extended universe, drag them in and drag them down as well, and to bog your story down with so much irrelevant, not even accurate information is, I just, how, and it's a very interesting. There's a few people that have spoken about it, and it's something that I found interesting was like the idea of Chekhov's gun, of like, if there's, if you have a scene with like the shotgun on the wall, the shotgun has to go off at some point in the story.
Yeah.
The idea of the relevant information, and Halo 5 is a pile of shotguns in the middle of the room on a table, and nobody even looks at them. And
That's fair.
they aren't even loaded. It's
It's loaded with rock salt, so it's disappointing when you pull the trigger.
No, not even that. You fire them and it goes ping, and a little fucking flag comes out that says "pow" instead of "bang." It's like
every bit of it's a disappointment.
every stage of it is progressively more. And there's something that I want to talk about as well that worries me about Infinite.
Okay.
And this is where I want to say
segue.
Spoilers for Halo Wars 2.
Okay.
So if people don't want spoilers for Halo Wars 2, also, Homic, you don't have much of a choice.
Honestly, I was probably just gonna look it up anyway. So
here's the thing. At the end of Halo 5 Guardians, you have that clip of Cortana humming over the image of what is a brand new Halo ring. Which, if you jump from this to the Infinite stuff, you're like, whoa, what could that possibly be? But in Halo Wars 2, a large plot point of that game is the fact that, so you've played Halo Wars 1, right? Homer?
Yes.
So I don't entirely know where that game ends. I assume the game ends with the ship being stranded.
With the spirit in whatever the fucking fire,
or whatever it is.
Spirit of fire being stranded, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So again, obviously Halo Wars 2 picks up with them waking up. And they wake up on the edge of the galaxy around Installation 00. And throughout the game, basically what ends up happening is the Ark is creating another Halo ring. And it starts building another Halo ring. And the character from Halo Wars 2 has this brilliant idea of, we need to get the fuck out of here. We're gonna die. We're gonna use slip space to get to an area where the UNSC, we can contact the UNSC, and we're gonna use the Halo ring to do it. Because Installation 00 is designed to put the rings through slip space to their designated locations. So it's gonna make this Halo ring, and we're gonna take it, and it's going to go to the site of the ring from Halo 1 near Reach. Because that, and throughout the game, it's implied that they managed to basically defuse the ring and take away blow everyone up and kill the galaxy part. And they go through slip space with this ring, and boo, they get put to where the Halo 1 ring was. Obviously, it's destroyed now. And it gets put there, and at the very end of the game, the character from Halo Wars 2, that's the thing. They think they're going to where the Halo 1 ring was, but they get pulled out of slip space. And when they get pulled out of slip space, they're like, what the fuck is going on? And then they go out, and what appears before them? A Guardian.
Mm.
And it's like,
Oh.
all of a sudden, things start to line up. And it's like, well, we have a new Halo ring that's been constructed, and a Guardian just randomly appears at the end of Halo Wars 2. And it's
Well, I
like,
mean, my theory at the end of Halo 5 was always that Cortana was going to use the Halo rings to threaten sentient life into complying with her.
Yeah, same.
yeah,
Because she's artificial intelligence. She can't
Yeah.
die from the Halo ring.
Right.
So that I always figured that. So now it's interesting to know where they were going with that exactly.
the thing that worries me about it is, and this is going to sound bad, but it's the truth, and that's the reason I'm so apprehensive, is because I saw how much they fucked up Halo 5. And I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's probably not the same writing team from Halo Wars 2 that's working on Infinite.
Yeah. That's a fair assumption.
And that's what worries me, is that I feel like Halo Wars 2 has probably set up something really good, and I'm scared to see if the writing team for Infinite ruins it.
Only time will tell, dude.
Which is why I'm apprehensive. I have hopes. I think from what I've seen of Infinite, the gameplay looks cool. The visual style. I know a lot of people have had an issue with the visual style for some reason, which I don't understand.
Yeah, same.
The footage from for the demo they showed was from a pre-alpha build, or an alpha build of the game. So they were unfinished. There were some physics that were unfinished. I know at one point a brute got stuck with a grenade. The grenade exploded, and then he died a half second after the explosion.
Yeah.
Also, like enemies didn't have any facial animations. Like everyone made fun of Craig the Brute. That's been a meme that's been going around.
An
And
alpha build.
yeah, it was an alpha build.
Yeah.
But still, a reason why people are, and I am a little worried also, is because why would they show us, if we're this close to the game's launch, why wouldn't they show us a more finished product?
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
So it's like, I don't know why. Maybe there's an actual legitimate reason for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea. All I know is I cannot judge Halo Infinite until I get it in my hands.
Exactly.
Same.
Yeah.
However, I know that Halo 5 made me have to take a salacious shit just talking about it.
Yeah. And you know what? That shit, still a better story than Halo 5.
Let me tell you, dude. It was a great journey.
Oh.
I was trying, while I was on the can, I was trying to think of what else about Halo 5, but did we say essential? Did we do a ranking for Halo 4? By the way, I don't think we did.
We did not, because we just kind of wanted to slap 5 in the face.
Yeah, we were so bloodlust hungry for ripping apart Halo 5.
I'm just gonna go ahead and start with Halo 4 real quick and say recommended, but only just.
I am going, again, I'm going strictly on a narrative aspect. I still think that Halo 4's narrative, for its faults, is necessary for understanding the story. Because I think you can go without Halo 5 completely.
Yeah, honestly, for Halo 5, I give a haha no.
Yes,
I agree. Halo 5's obviously a haha no. But Halo 4, again, I agree. I think for me, it just falls under that essential category. Because of the fact that I feel like it ends that arc, if you like, very well. And then Halo 5 takes a shit all over it, but so I agree. I think that Halo 4 is still essential.
Halo 5 had so much fan service fluff in it.
Yeah.
Most of the game was fluff. And all the essential narrative parts, they spat at you lightning quick.
Yeah.
So you didn't even have time to fucking digest it. And then whatever else they didn't have time to throw at you in cutscene, they had your characters randomly spit them out as anecdotes as you're fighting. I fucking hate that. Is such a pet peeve of mine.
Do not give me important narrative information when I am balls deep in trying to kick something's ass. That is such a pet peeve of mine. I played Nier Automata recently, and they did that.
Yeah.
Even Astral Chain, which I fucking loved, they did that. I was fighting, and this guy in fucking Gary Oldman was rattling off about some kind of like, this is our future. This is what we are destined to be. I'm like, don't care. Killing a monster. Stop talking. Save it for a cutscene so I can actually digest what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's just a streamer problem.
Mm.
It might just be a streamer problem because I'm trying to not only use my words to like say to like talk to chat as I'm playing,
Right.
but I'm also trying to focus on the combat, and then at the same time, apparently trying to focus on my listening skills.
Yeah. Another thing with
So-
that specifically for streamers is cutscenes is quiet time. Because you're letting yourself not only digest the stuff, you're letting chat digest the stuff. But when you're killing shit, when you're killing shit though, that's your time to have your conversations. Because what's going on in the game is purely visual. And you can go ahead and talk to chat about whatever you're doing. But if you're trying to talk to chat while you're killing stuff, when everybody's focused on the game and you, and then suddenly the game out of nowhere is like, hey, this is important, it throws off your flow. It's just, yeah.
Yep.
It
I
sucks.
completely feel that. You and I are a little bit different, Jacob, and that I don't give a shit about cutscenes.
Well, in my defense, I do play a lot of RPGs, so it
Yeah,
probably
I
comes from
will-
that.
I will freely make fun of shit that I think is stupid in cutscenes when I see it.
Oh, if there's
but
something
that-
dumb, I will talk over a cutscene, but it's rare.
Oh, I'm a chatty Cathy. But yeah, reeling it back in. So I would say from a narrative aspect, Halo 4 is essential because the ending with Cortana dying is a big deal. Didact is it's border just recommended for me.
Yeah.
It's barely essential. Because I don't give a shit about the Didact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm right there
was-
with you. I'm just on the other side of that line.
Yep.
Yeah,
mhm.
and I'm standing with Homek on it. I feel like the development of Cortana and Chief's relationship in that game is just so important that it tips it over to that other side of essential.
Now, quick question again for you
Sure.
guys. Because I know a lot of people when I went into this, when I started playing, hey, I loved that they were giving Chief more of a personality in Halo 4, but there are a lot of people, again, purists, who were like, no, he's supposed to be our empty husk. He's not supposed to have a personality of his own, blah, 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 blah. What
Okay.
was your guys' opinion
So
on
I
that? If you had
actually
any?
have some very specific thoughts on this.
Oh boy.
In that, I think because for me to preface this, for me, Halo 4, and I think maybe for a lot of people, Halo 4 was very divisive. It was there seemed to be two main camps of shouldn't have handed over to 343 and give them a chance. And I very much love the fact that they're developing Chief as a character. I think it does two things. I think it opens so many possibilities for interesting narratives and for interesting both philosophical and character development within the series. And I think that it marks a very good, what could have been a very good potential change in the way that Halo's story is looked at, and could have been a very interesting way for 343 to separate themselves from Bungie and for them to make their own unique spin on the Halo series and for them to develop their way to tell a Halo story, and then they blew it.
All roads lead to fuck up.
It was the idea of Chief sitting down and like the line of she said that once, about being a machine.
Yeah.
And the idea of the effect that Cortana's death has on Chief, then the reflection it makes him have on himself, and the road it leads him down has such glistening golden potential, only to have it be fool's gold.
Yeah,
and also, funnily enough, because the beginning of Halo 4, sorry, going back a game, like the very beginning, the intro cutscene, it had such interesting premise behind it, because you're talking to Catherine Halsey, which, for those of you who don't know, is the one who made Master Chief and the rest of the Spartan 2s.
Yeah.
Like, she's the one who designed the Super Soldier program called the Spartan 2 Project. And she is the main focus of that beginning narrative. And she's being interrogated by someone, which they're building up hugely to Chief leaving and to Chief's departure from humanity in Halo 5. Like, that's what it felt like the narrative was building up to, even with that, because she was being interrogated about Master Chief and about him being a potential threat to humanity if he was on the loose.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to find him to make sure he was dead or to get him back on the leash. Because he was such a huge symbol to humanity at that point. So they were trying to. So the friggin' Oni, the spooks, they were trying to either find him to confirm he was dead, or to find him and bring him back so he wouldn't be a liability. Because he was the symbol of peace and hope for the humanity, much like All Might, though. And he was, and so that was an interesting narrative, and the fact that the story from that point almost went nowhere with that idea after Halo 4 was just such a letdown from a narrative perspective. Because I was so ready to like play a game where you were hunting Master Chief.
Yep.
I was so ready. It didn't happen. So yeah, on that note, I will say, if you are interested in playing the Halo games, you can freely skip over Halo 5.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Agree.
Freely skip over it.
No, please no. God no.
Was there anything else you guys wanted to add from Halo 5?
Not without going into another hour.
Okay. So one thing I want to talk about now, because I don't want to end on the negative note that is Halo 5.
That's why.
Yeah, I want to back up to ODST and Reach, and then we'll close it out there, because we've actually been going for 3.5 hours, which is more than I anticipated.
You greatly
You
underestimate my fucking nerding over this series.
Hey, I'm glad.
Me tell you.
Hey, this is great. This just means I have to write less questions for future episodes. It means I get to be more lazy. I'm fine with it.
As long as you have someone as nerdy as me about the next subject.
Bruh, we're all so fucking nerdy about something, so...
I mean, exactly.
We all have that one
Very
thing,
true.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Fried
ODST.
toast.
We'll start with ODST. I don't... Alright, I should preface this by saying I have a negative... I don't think what the right word is. I have a negative, like...
Association.
Yeah, something bad happened when it came out, and I hated the game for it. The TLDR of it is I played it with 3 other friends on co-op on Legendary to get achievements, because at that time I was really into achievement hunting, and the game was bugged and it didn't give me half the fucking achievements.
That sucks.
Always hated the game for that. I will say that the story's fine for me. Like, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it's serviceable.
Absolutely not.
What I liked was the firefight stuff. That was fun. I enjoyed that.
That was the first institution of fighter fight in the Halo series also.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's about all my history with ODST. I don't have as much of an in-depth. So if you guys, by all means.
So I feel like for me, ODST is... There's a reason it's called Halo 3 ODST. It feels very much, at least to me, like a supplementary game for like the Halo series. That It's very different tonally
Mm.
to some of the other parts of the Halo series. It's very well. You're playing as an ODST. You're not playing as a Spartan.
Right.
And I think the idea of like the hunting down what the fuck happened to the team and stuff is interesting. I think honestly, I think I wouldn't necessarily say it's an issue necessarily I have with ODST, but I think my thoughts with ODST is that it's overshadowed by the other games that I've played in the Halo series.
Yeah.
And it's
Not
less
not
memorable
as
to
good.
me because of
Not as
that,
memorable. Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
I love ODST. Actually.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
A big part of that is this is one of Bungie's last games, but it shows because the game does feel less like a Halo game and more like an episode or
Mhm.
like a kind of like a sci-fi series
Mhm.
Okay.
in
Yeah.
the way the story is being told. And it wasn't completely Halo, but it was very fresh and I really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
Because there's an air of there was an air of mystery and stuff going on, and just I love this. The music was such a tonal shift, but it
Yeah.
really worked for the game. Just that feeling of you are this, you are not a bombastic super soldier just running around destroying everything in your path. You're everything's a little more somber. You gotta think a little more tactfully
Yeah.
about entering combat situations. I enjoyed that. And I love the characters. All the characters had defined personalities.
Yes.
Like Dutch, Romeo, Buck, uh
Mickey.
Mickey, that's Mickey, the fucking betrayer.
Yeah.
Rookie. Sorry, that's lore that you don't fucking get in the games because it's in books. So
Uh, oh, Buck, wouldn't it be a shame if someone stripped him of all of his personality and shat all over everything he was?
he still had personality in Halo 5. He was the only one of Osiris that had personality. The only one, and I attribute that mainly to Nathan Fillion's performance. Nathan, as my friend Alex would say, Nathan Filmaloins.
Also, wouldn't it also be insane if they made a game where Buck was a Spartan and they never explained how or why, because that was also extended lore material?
Mm-hmm.
Cough.
Yep. 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 And wouldn't it be interesting to know that the only survivor from Noble Team from Halo Reach was the one that recruited him to become a Spartan? Would that be interesting? Halo 3 ODST. I enjoyed the game. Firefight was good. Definitely a selling point. The game should not have been a full price game. It was
That's
$60.
Fair.
It should not have been a full price game because it was basically just a glorified expansion to Halo 3. I loved it from a narrative aspect. It was definitely a lot more slow paced than Halo 3, which was the game prior to it, obviously. But I always have a warm spot in my heart, also because that was my first year in college. And so I just have fond memories of sitting in my dorm room. I had a solo dorm room.
Ooh.
I was lucky in college. I got an RA room. I happened to get an RA room, and they accidentally mixed up, and my roommate was going to be a girl in a guy's dorm. So I ended up just not having a roommate. So I had a room all to myself, a huge room all to myself.
That's
And
amazing.
so I just remember sitting and playing Halo 3 ODST in my downtime.
So
And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed hunting for the side story that was with the girl Sadie, I think her name was in the game. And yeah, I enjoyed the game immensely, and it ended very well, and it gave us some fun characters, which were popular enough to make it into another installment of the game.
So with all of that said, what ranking would you give ODST?
Highly recommended.
Yeah, I think as well. I would say recommended. Though it falls a little bit more at the middle of that area for me, purely because I feel like I would have enjoyed ODST more, had it not been so directly related with Halo 3 in terms of like marketing and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like if it had been marketed as more of its own thing, I probably at the time of like first time playing it,
Right.
I would have enjoyed it more. I think.
ODST had some badass marketing actually. Did you see? I forget what the trailer was called. But did you see the ODST trailer?
I don't know if I did. I think when I say market, I think the only thing I fully know about, because I think that was the thing with ODST for me, was it was like somebody, I wasn't entirely sure about ODST's existence and what it was, and somebody was like, "Oh yeah, it's like the extra story for Halo 3 kind of thing," and I was like, "What?"
So I feel personally, and I hate to compare them, but I think that Halo 3 ODST and Halo 5 Guardians suffer from the same thing, and that's that they have a number.
Tread carefully.
I think both games having numbers is terrible. If it had been Halo Guardians and not Halo 5, maybe it wouldn't have been as abysmal.
It's funny you say that because that goes in line with my conspiracy.
Yeah,
theory,
dude, I
Jacob.
actually really like your theory. I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
And then with
I agree.
Halo 3 ODST, if it had just been called Halo ODST and more obviously a bit of a spin-off rather than, oh, 3, what? And charging full price for it, I think that people would have viewed it better. I don't know that it would have sold as well, but I think it would have done better with the reception that it got from people that actually played it. But that's just my thought. So, and I will also agree that I think it falls middle ground recommended for me. Just because Firefight's really fun. I really like Firefight.
Yeah. I
With
think
friends.
it's very
With friends.
solid. I think it's very solid. The story is good. It's a good. It's just is good.
Yeah.
But again, definitely not required. But
No, you could cut it out and you wouldn't miss a beat in the main story.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Now, the last one we're going to talk about, Halo Reach. One of my favorites.
Reach.
Start by saying that. I really enjoy Reach. I feel like at the beginning it seems a little odd, but as it goes, it becomes so much more. And
I think
that end. Oof.
Yeah, I
Oof.
think that the thing with Reach, at least from like a story standpoint, is you know how it ends.
Yeah.
If you're for 90% of the audience going into Halo Reach, you know how it ends.
Yep.
Hell, as we've discovered, one of the first pieces of media that existed in the entire Halo franchise, as I've learned today, was Fall of Reach.
Yeah.
The book. Yep.
The book. We know how it was going to begin. We know how it was going to end, and I think they still told a fantastic story and kept you.
And that's hard to do when your readers, your players, your watchers already know how it's going to start and end, and you can still create something that keeps you on the edge of your seat. That is hard to do.
Characters that you get attached to as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was playing Halo Reach, what was funny to me, it felt like I was playing a sci-fi version of Saving Private Ryan.
That's fair, actually.
Yeah.
It didn't quite feel like a Halo game to me. It felt like a gritty war movie, is what it felt like to me.
That's honestly,
there
makes
were the
sense.
Halo elements there. You were fighting the Covenant. There were aliens, but also I think a big part of it was when the series started getting serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my biggest things, and someone, I forget what YouTuber I saw that said this, what a big part of Halo's heart, its core back in the day in the first 3 games, was the Marines. In the first 3 games, the Marines, they're goofy, they're funny, you want to have them around, they're constantly praising you for how much of a badass you are.
Yeah.
As soon as Halo Reach rolled around, the Marines started losing that lightheartedness about them. And then that led into Halo 4, and they didn't exist almost anymore in Halo 4 and 5.
Yeah.
At all. And save for a few scenes, like when you're leaving the Infinity, all the Marines are saluting you and being like, "Good luck, Chief," and all that stuff. But you don't get to have them around you like you did.
Yeah.
And it shows. Like they are such a huge part of the heart of like Halo. They are like the lightheartedness. They are the like, aw, like these are my buddies. Like
Yeah.
you
They
want to
humanize
protect
you.
the Marine. Yeah, they're the human aspect. That you want to protect the Marines because they're your good little friends.
Unless they have a gun
And
you want.
Yeah.
well, then you weapon swap in Halo 2.
Yeah, weapons swap into their
Okay.
face. Here, you can
But-
have this.
But so that's why Halo Reach felt more like a gritty, like war movie to me.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean I didn't like it. I loved Halo Reach's story.
Yeah. I think it's very, so it's my outlook on Reach is that it's interesting narratively because you're right. It's so much darker and it's so much more serious and it's so much more I don't know. Real isn't the right word, but like it's so much more like you're you spend the game progressively being put on the back foot because it's not like with Halo where you're this. I mean, you are still like a powerful super soldier, but you're not this all powerful. You're not the Master Chief
Right.
blasting through a battlefield and punching Covenant in the nuts and shoving those nuts down other grunts' faces.
You're an
like-
expendable super soldier.
Yeah. And you're not only are you an expendable, but you're the new guy. You're the new guy, and you're very green, and you're in well, as is shown by the end of the game, you're in over your head.
Yeah.
And shit gets real and shit goes sideways, and you're the guys that are left to mop up the mess.
That is probably the most accurate thing you
Yeah.
could compare it to.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it is not only is it a prequel, but it also is a tragedy as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone dies.
Mhm.
Well, except for June.
Yeah,
fucking
June, you little
bitch.
fucking bitch.
But and everyone, the way they die is very narratively appropriate too.
Mm.
Yeah.
I forget them all. George dies.
I'm ready. How about you?
Oh my god. Every time, dude. In that moment, he is almost as badass as Johnson.
Right?
That moment. Almost.
Oh, God.
And like George dies thinking that he's saved his planet, his home. Kat, the brains, she dies from getting her brains blasted out of her face.
Yep.
Oh, don't.
Yep.
Dude, Emil though.
Emil goes down fighting like he
Oh.
always has.
Yep.
Carter goes down as the captain of a ship.
Yep.
And then the lone wolf dies like a lone wolf.
Yeah.
Your character. And it's very poetic and very fucking depressing.
Very.
However, Halo Reach also was a very like self-relating thing for me because I remember back in when Halo 2 was coming out, when I was a young lad, before Halo 2 even came out, we were speculating what cool game mechanics you think are gonna be in Halo 2. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if instead of just punching a dude in the back, if you like ran up to them and you actually could do like a cool animation of you like stabbing them with a knife or something?
Yeah.
And then Halo Reach Assassinations came out, and I was fucking ecstatic.
Yep.
Dude.
Any chance I get to assassinate somebody that isn't going to compromise me, I will do it.
What I loved about the assassinations was they added assassinations, but they didn't lose the backsmack.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope, you
kept
had the
both.
option.
And I love that. I love that you can be a flashy dickhead or you can be efficient.
Yep.
Yep.
You don't have to compromise for it. You can do one or the other. It
I will-
also gave us that if they came to hear me beg achievement.
Indeed.
I don't know that I have that still. I tried for so long.
Giddy you look when you talk about assassination.
Mhm.
That was God damn it, that was such a good just like that was an idea that I had years ago. They finally put it in they finally put it in my favorite game series.
And I think that was something that that was a big thing. So for me was the multiplayer of Reach was while nostalgia wise and community wise, I would still argue that Halo 3 was more impactful. I do think that Halo Reach's multiplayer was better mechanically.
Well, you had such a diverse palette at that point too. You
Yeah.
had firefight. I loved invasion mode. Invasion mode was
Invasion
my
is
jam.
criminally underrated. It is so well done.
They tried to bring it back spiritually as Warzone, but unfortunately Warzone ended up being so pay to win by the end of it. Like
Yeah.
your weapon packs that you would get would just give you better weapons to use than other people. It was fun in concept, but there was almost no way to come back from a losing battle. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it was the same way with Titanfall. And the original Titanfall came out. If you didn't play that game every single day, I remember this. When I played it when it first came out, I loved the concept.
Mm.
I love the free running.
Oh, the
Yes.
so
So
good.
good.
And being able to jump into a mech and just fuck shit up was so badass. And I wish I played the second game because I heard it was so much better. But the problem is that you would not play that game for like a day and you'd come back to play again, and then everyone would have better gear than you and would be
Yeah.
stomping you because they had all the better mechs because they didn't stop fucking playing the game.
Yeah.
And Halo 5 had the same feeling where if you didn't play that game consistently, you were rewarded much less.
Yep.
And you didn't upgrade the goodies that everybody else was getting for the amount of time that they plugged into the game.
Yep.
Halo 5's multiplayer, I barely touched.
Yeah.
I barely touched. Halo Reach, I played the shit out of.
Yep. Yeah.
That's interesting. Which multiplayer did y'all play the most out of all the Halo games?
3.
Reach.
For me, it was 2.
Yeah. I played
We're
Reach
all
the
different.
most. Yeah.
Mm.
Reach for me
Interesting.
because I was really into 3 and I played a lot of 3. But I didn't properly find a group that played Halo consistently until the multiplayer in Reach. I played the Reach beta and I met a couple people, and there was a couple people I knew from various places IRL that were super into the Reach beta. And then we ended up going on to play a fuck ton of Reach together so that much like you said yourself, you were like with Halo 2, I ended up being like with Reach. It was a case of come home, my responsibilities are gone. It's time time to play Reach. And I spent a lot of time doing so many different things. Like that was the Forge mode in Reach was just so good. And then the crazy shit that people come up with as well.
Very
Which has
creative.
made me so excited about the addition of Forge to the new Master Chief Collection. And this is so dumb, right? It's such a weird specific thing. But something that they've added in the new Forge, by the way, is the ability for projectiles to travel through teleporters.
What?
Turn that on and off, so you can fire rockets through teleporters now.
Oh my god.
That's
mean.
mean.
It's so mean. I love it.
And you can adjust the settings to say what can and can't go through and stuff, apparently. And I'm like,
Oh my
dude,
god, dude.
cans of worms have been opened.
So I would say again. Sorry, did anyone?
No.
I don't know if I had anything else to talk about with Reach. I think I've touched about.
Yeah, I think
as
we're
much as I want.
Yeah,
good.
I mean, Yeah, I think for me, like with Reach's story as well, right? So this was the other thing. Like, Reach was actually my first experience with not necessarily expanded universe stuff, but the idea of
Mm.
properly looking into side content that wasn't directly related to the game, because I got the collector's edition of Reach.
Yes,
Ah.
dude, that collector's edition was amazing.
I stand by it today that is one of the best collector's editions.
Top 5 for me, for sure.
Ever. It's so fantastic, and the journal and all the bits, the little bits of lore and the little stuff. It's so good, and that was my first experience with diving into non-game related Halo content. And it was like eye-opening to like the potential that it could have. And I think Reach was that turning point for me of like really diving into like the meat and potatoes of the rest of Halo rather than just playing the original trilogy. I also wanted to touch on like the idea of the difference in gameplay and how the gameplay evolved from the original trilogy to where it is now, and Halo Reach is a big component of that. I feel like the step from 3 and ODST, especially the multiplayer, the step from there to Reach is a very big jump for the multiplayer. And the map layouts and stuff, it completely changed the way that you approached any kind of fight. And it completely changed the way that people designed forge maps. It completely changed the way that vehicular combat worked. It changed everything. And how multiplayer combat was looked at, especially competitive multiplayer. And it changed the scene for multiplayer so much that it could be argued that it ended up leading it down a bad path. And I could see the argument for that. But I also feel that like it was a good step, and I feel like if they had done Halo 3's multiplayer, like if they had done Halo 3 multiplayer 2.0 kind of thing, where it was very similar to Halo 3 with mild improvements, it would have been great, but I don't think it would have had the effect that it had with them changing so much and adding so much. I think I'm glad that they took the risk and that they added all that stuff with the armor abilities, and they changed the way that you play, and they changed the maps, and they added so much content, and I think it paid off for a much better multiplayer experience. But yeah.
There. Anything you want to add, Homic?
Fucking remember Reach.
Yeah,
Oh,
remember.
Yes, remember Reach. Yes.
One might even say, never forget.
Full circle. First circle. So speaking of remembering Reach, on the rating scale, what do you guys think? I'm gonna personally say essential, but close to recommended.
Same, because you could skip it out from a story perspective, but it changed so much of the core that was Halo's gameplay that it's an important bookmark in the chapters of Halo's history.
Yeah,
I would
agree.
say.
I feel like I'm very torn on this one because my heart says essential, but my mind looking at it feels like it's very high recommended, and it falls more on the essential side, but it's close. It's very, very close, and it is purely because of probably personal bias. Because again, the story, technically, not necessarily required to understand stuff, but again, the multiplayer experience of Reach is just so pivotal in what the Halo series is and has become that missing it out just feels stupid.
Also, it's the first time you had female Spartan booty.
Yep,
that's fair.
And you cannot go wrong with Cat's ass.
It's true.
That was Reach's ass.
Yeah,
the ass of Reach.
I understand, but it just being within a 10-mile radius of Cat means that I will be splattered by a warthog, but I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with her splattering all over me. Just maybe not her brain cell.
Ooh, oh no. Well, that was an experience.
So, do we want to end with like our general thoughts on the series, or
Sure. Go ahead, Olmec.
All right. So my general thoughts is it's such an iconic sci-fi shooter series. Like, if you've ever been interested in Halo, I would say look into it. Like the even if you just want to read the fucking books, like you can read Fall of Reach, Flood, and First Strike, and that's a really good trilogy because
Yeah.
you get the story of the first game, and more from those first three books. It's like the fact that this series has transcended games to such a media soaking point is a statement unto itself. Yeah, we make fun of it. Oh, the games, like people like fist pounders and stuff are like, but it's not the same as how it was. But you can't argue the fact that as a sci-fi story, it has transcended its medium from which it has started.
Yep.
To the point where it's become, to a fault, unfortunately, bigger than it can even handle.
Yeah.
From a story standpoint. I said this when Infinite was announced. If they want to add all this story, they need to turn Halo into a sci-fi shooting RPG like Mass Effect. Like, if they honestly wanted to like contain all the story. Otherwise, it's a series that I will always go back and play, and I will always dedicate a month to playing it because it is such an important part of my life growing up and an important part of the development of games in general. Like Halo, as I said, set so many standards for the game industry as far as like console play and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And system link and everything. It was so experimental in some things. And it paid off in dividends and made such an iconic series that even though it has its bad eggs, which is something to say because even though Halo 5 is a stinker as far as Halo, it's not a bad game. If that makes sense.
It's an okay game. It's a bad Halo game.
Yes. If you don't give a shit about the story, it's a solid game. It's not. I would give it like a 6 or a 7 if I was just rating it.
Give it a 5.
For a Halo game, it's a 2.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. 2's pretty generous.
Well, I am kind. But so even though it's got its stinker, it still stood so long, and there's a reason why it has such a passionate and ravenous fan base.
Yeah.
Again, to a fault.
Yeah.
Sometimes. But it's so goddamn amazing. I fucking love this series. I will always love the series through its ups and downs.
Yeah. I think I agree with so much of what you say there. Halo as a series is so influential on just about every aspect of gaming that I've ever like experienced. Halo has created that butterfly effect of I wouldn't be where I'm sitting right now if it wasn't for the Halo series. It's had such an impactful resonance with so many people. It brought so many people together. So much has come from it. That if this style of game, this kind of first-person shooter style of game, is your thing, then words cannot express how much this is like a must play as an entire series. And I like when it says like even at its lowest points, mechanically the games are good. Even though the series may have fallen from the grace that it was once at, and it might not be the juggernaut that the original trilogy was, it's still Halo, and there is nothing that I think that that's something for me that speaks to the testament of the original, even from fucking 1 to Reach. Bungie created such a powerful and strong game series that there is nothing that anyone can do to muck with the legacy of Halo. Games from here forward may be terrible for all we care, but nothing will ever muck with what has already happened. And I think that as a whole, the series is, again, it's more, it's the perfect example of being more than people expect from the game industry, especially at the time. The books, the TV series, the movies, the music, the everything about the series has had so much love put into it and had so much passion and created so much community, that it's no wonder that it's got to where it is. And I think that although it's fun to joke and meme and put everything aside, like it's a must play for anyone who enjoys a first person shooter.
Agree.
There's one thing we must know though, and that is Fortnite's better than Halo. I wanted to bomb saying that.
Can I get that quoted in chat, please?
No, don't do it.
So I think Homek and I can both agree that everything Ben was talking about, I'm sure, was nice and accurate, but we were both very distracted about what Finn was talking about.
Yeah, I know.
No. Like I've actually already got that song playing in my ears right now. It was a very awesome background for Ben speaking. It was like the passion, the community that Halo has built.
And then Fortnite is better than Halo, and it's still playing.
And now it turns into battle music as we descend upon Homek.
And then, of course, just for the extra icing on top, after we kick his ass, we do the dumbass Fortnite dance over top of him. Well, I will say for my Halo stuff, you guys basically covered everything. For me, it was a nostalgic series. I was introduced to the series in a difficult time in my life, and I kept with it through all those years. And the series means a lot to me, and I really hope that Infinite can give us something that we as Halo fans can be proud of.
Same. I think it will give us. I think it'll definitely give us something good. Whether or not it's everything that we would like out of a Halo game, I don't know. However, God knows they've been spending so much time developing this game.
Yeah.
And they've been taking so much they've been listening so hard to the community, and God knows I've answered so many fucking surveys from Halo Insider. If this game is as bad as Halo 5, then there is no hope for this series. But I do not see that happening. I see this as, at the very least, it will be an extremely solid Halo game.
Yeah.
And that's me thinking positively.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
I can't wait to take a month to fucking play the game because of all the goddamn side missions.
Oh, yeah. Well, Homek, thank you for being here for our very first ever episode of Retroactivity.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I hope you had fun talking about Halo for 4 hours.
Yeah.
I ran through various emotions the entire time. I need to go get some food to recover mentally.
Oh, same, dude. I got half a meatball sub waiting for me as soon as I hit the end stream
Still
button.
feel the perspiration from talking about Halo 5. And
Molasses, I peed twice, I shit once.
get it right.
The
Yeah,
shit was
Molasses.
from Halo 5.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Oh.
as you do. But I had a lot of fun with this. I'm definitely going to keep this going as a series. As far as next week's episode, there's a 50% chance it's going to be one topic, and there's a 50% chance it's going to be a different topic. So I'm going to keep that a little close to the chest until I know for sure exactly what topic we're going to be discussing. But yeah, we're going to do this every week with different guests and stuff, and I guess Ben, whatever.
You haven't seen the last of me.